This time on War Junk, we investigate one of the most iconic battlefields in Canadian history, Juno Beach. We get a rare opportunity to search the beachhead using state-of-the-art technology.
It's very, very clear that there's something particular happening right here.
Will the team find an elusive buried German bunker that caused a horrific number of casualties on D-Day? What is the purpose of the mysterious shelters found hidden in a nearby woods?
It looks like a ledge. It looks like a place where you would hand out something.
And can we reunite a family with the artifact of their fallen ancestor? This is War Junk Juno Beach.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
With our team, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefield.
Some big, some small.
All with a story to tell
and a mystery or two to solve along the way. It's amazing to think we're driving on one of the most storied battlefields in world history.
But it's so quaint and peaceful today.
But it was anything but on June 6, 1944. This was where the liberation of Western Europe began.
And one of the greatest invasions in history.
D-Day began on June 6, 1944, with the Allies attacking on 5 beachheads along the Normandy coast. The Americans at Omaha and Utah to the west, the British in command of Gold and Sword, and the Canadians at Juno Beach. All told, nearly 150,000 men stormed ashore that day. So what do you think?
I've always wondered what it would have been like to be a German soldier that morning on June 6, 1944, looking out and seeing the Allies approaching.
Yeah, the greatest invasion fleet in history, artillery screaming down, planes whipping by, explosions everywhere. It was hell on earth here.
This is the most well-trodden, investigated battlefield in the world. We're looking for artifacts and war junk to help tell the story. I mean, do you think we're going to find anything?
Well, D-Day was only the beginning of a 75-day campaign that pushed miles inland. I mean, this is a target-rich environment.
So where do we begin our search?
Well, I've already made arrangements to go to what I believe is the perfect place to start this journey.
There it is. Beautiful. Pretty dramatic building.
The Juno Beach Center sits at the heart of the Canadian Landing Zone. Built by Canadians in 2003 as a museum and memorial, it's also a research center and the perfect place to begin our search.
Oh, there she is.
We're meeting Marie-Eve Vaillancourt, its curator.
Oh.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Dave
you, too.
O'Keefe, this is Wayne Abbott.
Hello.
But of all the places along Juno Beach, why did they build the Juno Beach Center here?
This is where the Canadians took some of the highest casualties on D-Day.
This is where the Royal Winnipeg Rifles landed?
Yes, B Company specifically.
As a matter of fact, I think they ended up coming up against a couple of pillboxes.
Well, all you really need is 2 pillboxes that are set up with each other and interlock fire, and that can create a lot of casualties very quickly.
Yeah, and certainly for these guys 70 years ago, that was their D-Day experience. The 3rd Canadian Infantry Division was responsible for Juno Beach, a 10-kilometer stretch of shoreline. The Mike Red sector, where the center is now located, was only a small but vital portion of the Canadian landing zone. Well, you know, we like to go from battlefield to battlefield and tell the stories based on what's left, whether it be big remnants or small remnants. What do you have here that will take us right back to June 6, 1944?
A lot. The more time we spend here on site, the more things we discover. There's also things that are buried on the ground that we've gradually tried to recover and find out more about.
Our journey to find war junk started quicker than I would have imagined. Just about 100 feet from the front doors of the Juno Beach Center, she took us to a series of stairs that went underground.
So this is it?
Yes.
It's not often you get a chance to go under Juno Beach. Wow. So this is sizable. What exactly was it used for?
This was a command post
So this controlled all the German defenses in this particular sector of Juno Beach.
Yes, basically everything grew from here.
How long was this covered up?
A long time.
Was that something that was a natural occurrence, or
Yes,
was it
since
intentionally
there's
filled?
openings, it just filled with sand gradually. 70 years of sand
Shifting sands.
filling up this place, making it look like there's nothing here.
Packed in sand and buried for decades, it remained in pristine condition. But I couldn't believe that Mary Ev and her colleagues literally just dug this out within the last year or so.
We were crawling in there with flashlights trying to see where this led, where it stopped. We just dug and discovered as we dug. We took out 20 tons of sand by hand, and it took about a year with volunteers. We had no idea we would discover about 75 square meters of space.
Yeah, because this is about 10 feet deep.
That's when Dave and I had another idea. What if there was more structures like this buried under Juno Beach?
There are other structures. The problem is that only about a quarter of them are visible today. So finding the other structures, we're pretty much blind. I mean, you can't start digging everywhere.
But what if we could locate other structures without digging?
Have you ever heard of ground-penetrating radar?
No.
Well, this is a relatively new technology in the field of archaeology. And with radar waves, you can actually get a really good view of what's there. Do you have any other reference materials for us to work from?
There's a really popular photo, actually, that was taken about 4 or 5 years after the war. We use it a lot because it clearly shows how much the land has changed around here. This bunker, for instance, is dominating the entire photo, so it's a great reference.
But what was special about this photo is that the sand had receded so much that all the German fortifications in the photo are exposed. You can see where the observation post is. You can see the 2 Tobruks and another mysterious bunker just on the beach.
Yeah, the
That are on
Tobruk
here.
is really, really clear right here.
Well, you can see 2. That looks like another Tobruk down there, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right? A Tobruk emplacement is a small concrete fortress that's buried in the ground. That's what the Germans were using to house their machine guns, and these were extremely deadly on D-Day. So, for a reference perspective, where is the Juno Beach Center on this now?
Right around here.
Where all these tents were?
Yeah, it was a campsite before.
Campsite?
Yeah, until we built it in 2003.
So you've got like 50 years, almost 60 years of a campsite on top of this.
Yeah.
That could be a challenge, because now not only do we have remnants and fortifications from World War II, but one would assume we have something from this campsite.
Hopefully, the GPR equipment will be able to tell the difference. After our discussion about the big artifacts, we move inside the museum to see if there are any small items with a story to tell about Juno Beach.
This is off of Juno Beach. There's a shell casing from Vimy Ridge.
Oh, Verrières.
A piece of P-51 Mustang aircraft from near Falaise, and then something we found when we actually dig for the building of the Juno Beach Center.
There's some amazing artifacts on display, but none of them had that certain special mystery attached to them.
What we're looking for is anything with a name, a number, any kind of marking that will help us research and find who that soldier is. And possibly the ultimate goal is to connect it with a living relative.
I have one in particular I can think of.
My. And where was this found?
In a field just south of Caen.
What do we have? We've got a name, H.I. Parry, and his serial number, K49513. This is amazing. This is not a dog tag. This is actually somebody's personal identification disc.
Yeah. And just flip it around.
Yeah.
That's what makes me want to find out more about it. Look at it.
From Mom and Dad, 14th of August, 1943. This was given to him, I guess, before he went off and fought. What happened to Mr. Parry?
We don't know.
Hugh Ivor Parry. He was 22 years old when he was killed on July 25th, 1944, and he was fighting with the North Nova Scotia Highlanders.
Well, the North Nova Scotian Highlanders, we know, landed on D-Day.
Yeah, they did.
This ID bracelet would be incredible if Perry landed in Juneau and made his way through the entire Normandy campaign.
July 25th was the date of a massive assault on Vimy Ridge, a stretch of high ground south of Caen. The North Nova Scotia Highlanders were tasked with taking a town called Tilly-la-Campagne. The entire operation resulted in 1,500 casualties, 500 fatal, including Hugh Ivor Perry.
Two of the most historic moments in Canadian military history. The landings at Juno and the disaster on Vimy Ridge.
We gotta get his service record.
Definitely.
With Perry's info dispatched to the research team, it's time to put our attention back to finding the buried bunkers at Juno Beach.
So you've been in touch with the GPR team, everything's set?
Yeah, they're using aerial photos that I provided them from World War II. They're using defense overprints. They're about as good to go as they could be. Now, which one's Blake, which one's John?
I'm Blake.
You're Blake, okay, hi.
Nice to meet you. John,
Hi,
nice to
John.
meet you.
Wow, this is an interesting toy.
This is our ground penetrating radar unit. This is what's going to show us what's under the ground out there on Juno Beach.
We have several documents to help us in our search, including an Allied intelligence map from 1944 and the 1947 photo.
This is going to be our reference point. This is the only thing that is still visible and prominent in this area.
So that's our North Star.
Yeah, you got it. Now, as you can see, at that time in 47, there were two bunkers that are somewhere just down here, but the dunes now have reclaimed everything. The first objective is going to be the pillboxes, the two, what they call Tobruk bunkers. These are the ones that did the heavy fighting on D-Day. And then the other issue would be this legendary story of the tunnels, which we think are somewhere in this area here.
In the Canadian War Diaries, there's claims by Canadian soldiers that Germans were popping out of these tunnels on Juno Beach. Using the ground-penetrating radar, maybe we can solve this mystery of whether these tunnels exist or not.
The two Tobruk gun emplacements were located on either side of the observation post. They have been buried now for years.
We're going to pull it taut.
We first search for the westernmost Tobruk, but we know it isn't going to be easy. This is difficult terrain for the GPR, and because our reference photo was taken from an oblique angle, the position of the western Tobruk is hard to pinpoint. Fortunately, we also have Allied intelligence maps created before D-Day that show a target here that could be the Tobruk. Plus, we have this new technology that can see underground.
Tell me how this thing works.
It sends a radar wave out of the front, which is then picked up on the back part of the transmitter array, and then we're going to see the results right on the screen.
And it doesn't take long for the GPR to find something.
As soon as I hit the top of our target, things drop to about 3 meters in depth. And it continues on for about 8 meters to 14 meters on the survey, so that's about 4 meters wide, 3 meters deep. It could be the gun position that we've been looking for.
Looks like we found a pillbox at Juno Beach.
There are several more target areas for John and Blake to scan, including both sides of the underground command headquarters. We're not just looking for the Tobruks, but any other German fortification that could be buried. We leave them to it and head south.
We have a great opportunity today because we're meeting the man who actually found Hugh Perry's ID bracelet.
We're heading to a small church in the town of Cormel to meet Philippe Lafranc. Cormel is a small village on the southern edge of Caen, about 15 kilometers from the town of Tilly-la-Campagne, where Hugh was killed.
Bonjour. You must be Philippe. Oui. Oui. When we met Philippe, we were a little shocked because we thought we were going to head out to Tilly-la-Campagne, or at least the area around that. But he actually said that the area where he found the disc wasn't that far from the church.
So I just go right?
Oui.
Oui.
Voilà.
Continue tout droit, ici.
Continuez tout droit. Voilà, en fait, c'est pas dans le champ, c'est dans le chemin, en fait.
Oh, dans le chemin, he said.
Dans le chemin.
He said he didn't find it in the field. He actually found it in this little road. Oui, c'est juste par là. Est-ce que c'est dans la chambre ici ou?
Non, c'est juste sur le bord du chemin, en fait. Là, au pied de l'arbre.
Just at the foot of the tree.
My first thought was, how does this get here all these years later and 15 kilometers from where allegedly Perry died?
Je l'ai trouvé à peu près ici,
Oui.
pris dans les dents du râteau. Du coup, bah, je l'ai nettoyé. Et puis, j'ai vu une inscription dessus,
Wow.
avec le nom de la personne, le matricule, et derrière, avec le souvenir de ses parents.
Pour vous, le sentiment, c'est quoi?
J'aime bien, ça m'a fait plaisir de trouver ça, quoi. Parce que bon, il y avait
Pourquoi?
déjà... C'est inexpliqué, j'aime bien ça, en fait, l'histoire militaire, j'aime tout ça, quoi. Et quand j'ai trouvé ça, j'ai tout de suite su que ça appartenait à un soldat, quoi.
Even though I don't speak French, I could hear in Philippe's voice how moved he was by finding the bracelet, especially the inscription on the back.
Bah, très plaisir de le revoir, très content. Je n'avais pas à le garder parce que bon, pour moi voilà, ça appartient à l'histoire et si je peux le rendre, c'est une belle fin pour cette gourmette quoi.
The most crucial piece of information was that this bracelet was not found on Vimy Ridge, which really begs the question, where did Hugh Perry die? How did this bracelet get here? Why was it not picked up on the battlefield?
The first step, then, is to find out where the North Nova Scotia Highlanders were actually fighting at the end of July in 1944, and whether they actually came through Cormel. If that can be established, then that will shed a lot of light on this mystery.
And the last thing we want to do is find a family member of Hugh Perry, bring them to France, and reunite them with this ID bracelet that's been lost for 70 years.
Meanwhile, back at Juno Beach, Blake and John think they found the first Tobruk buried in the sand at the western end of Juno Memorial Park.
Now we're searching for the second one, the eastern Tobruk seen in the 1947 photo. And beside it, a mystery bunker about which we have no clue.
The Tobruk and this other building, they're a bit further north towards the sea, so they should be back into this wooded area.
So this is the kind of terrain that you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So how are you going to attack it?
Well, I think I'm going to go get the magnetometer, strap it on. It's a lot more mobile than the GPR.
With GPR, you really need a flat, level area to push through.
This still isn't ideal conditions, but this is where we got to start looking.
The magnetometer is going to pick up any metal signals. So if there's reinforced concrete with rebar inside, he'll be able to figure that out. And there shouldn't be any other reason for a significant metallic structure to be buried under here. So if we get hits, we likely have our objectives. Any luck? Are you getting hits?
Oh, yeah.
John feels he has two significant hits in the dunes.
These two bunkers are actually key to understanding the experience of the Canadian soldiers landing right here on D-Day.
I got the second amount of strong readings right around here.
So that would be the long bunker, and this would be the Tobruk.
Yeah.
This is not good news. These dunes are protected, and we won't be allowed to dig. But then, a lucky break.
Just a few meters away, Blake set up another grid pattern.
We've hit a couple of really sharp targets. We want to get this whole area, and then we can provide you guys with a full picture of what's happening here.
It's exciting that we're getting closer to being able to excavate on Juno Beach. But first, Blake and John need time to process the GPR data. Meanwhile, the Juno Beach Center suggests we investigate a place called Tombette Woods.
Do you think there's anything to this new lead?
I've been looking on maps, planning documents, German documents. Nothing has shown up.
So all we know is that there's a little ravine in a small woods that might have German fortifications.
Not a lot to go on. This is it, right in here.
Wow.
This is a ravine?
It's a little woods, is it?
I thought it was gonna be bigger.
It was an area between two large fields that had a narrow strip of trees. Didn't think much of it until we walked in.
Now we know the Germans loved ravines. I mean, these were perfect places to camouflage any type of facility.
See anything else, though?
Here we go, down here.
Oh.
The first structure we saw was a small, maybe 10 by 10 cement building. I wouldn't even call it a bunker.
It's pretty crudely put together. Maybe 15 meters from the first one, there was a second structure. But this time it was a bit different. It looked like a house. It had a door and it had a window. So this was some sort of personnel shelter as opposed to an ammunition storage area.
Here's another one. This is very different, though. Well, it goes this way.
I still had a question whether this was military or did some farmers put this stuff here to store their crops. Most of the structures looked the same until we came across one particular one.
Holy, look at this.
This one looked like a mini bunker.
It looks like it's collapsed over here. I think we might actually have like a improvised German pillbox. It's a personnel shelter.
This thing is intact, exactly the way it would have been, say, in World War II. It looks like a ledge. It looks like a place where you would hand out something.
You can tell when you get inside, you can actually take a look and you'll see the area where they had the stove going through, the stove
Really?
pipe.
Wow. As we walked further along the ravine, there was another structure that caught my eye. No, that's probably not safe to go in this one.
No, this one's gonna come down very soon.
All the other places that we had seen were basically intact. This one was hanging on by a thread. If this was indeed a German fortification, maybe this was hit on D-Day.
But without any evidence of fighting bunkers, we still weren't convinced that we hit a military installation until we exited the wood at the other end. Oh, wow. Well, now I know why they situated this place here. It's kind of like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. And this particular spot was perfect for viewing Juno Beach. I'm not really sure whether there was any fighting that was done here, but it's the terrain. It's the terrain that gives this away. This is just too good of a killing zone not to be fortified in some way.
What we're looking for now is either something in the files or maybe someone nearby to truly tell us the story behind Tombette Woods.
After 2 days of collecting archaeological data on Juno Beach, it's time for John and Blake to reveal their findings.
We believe that this rectangular feature is the Tobruk. And the good news about that is we can tell exactly where those corners are.
This is a scan facing east off of the command post. What we've got is a very strong signature, and it's very linear.
Now we have a number of good targets to excavate on Juno Beach.
So the next thing is to make sure we get the appropriate permission, bring in the backhoes, and then we're gonna dig this thing out.
This is a momentous day. We've brought in teammate Craig Mitchell to help us dig on Juno Beach and unearth remnants of the German defenses faced by Canadian troops landing here on D-Day. The data shows us that we have about 3 or 4 potential dig sites.
One target is the area close to the sand dunes where we believe the eastern Tobruk is buried. Another target is an unknown hit the GPR team got near the underground German headquarters. But the big dig here is the Tobruk, located on the westernmost end of Juno Beach Park.
You know, there is a storm coming in, so we may want to change our plans. We were going to start on the smaller pieces and then build up to the Tobruk, but, you know, if this rain hits, we may want to start on that target first.
Let's hit the big targets and see where we go.
So we decide we're going to start on the west side.
Excited, Dave? It's starting now to dawn on me that we're actually gonna do this. I mean, it's one thing to run around with a GPR and plan and talk, but now the time is here. We're about to break ground on Juno Beach.
Come on, CC. What he's doing right now is just scraping all the vegetation off the surface so we can get down into the sand.
Looking for the edge here. Just seeing if we hit anything solid.
I'm excited, I'm nervous. I don't know what shape the Tobruk will be in, but whatever it is, this was here, D-Day, June 6, 1944.
You know what? I think this is the original Pebble Beach.
Sorry.
We're gonna move over and we're gonna start a different lane for excavation because right now we've gone down about 2 feet and we haven't been able to find anything solid.
Frustration is setting in early. We've dug 2 trenches, but so far, no sign of the Tobruk.
That looks like possibly decomposing concrete. I mean, that is a huge soil change. We got bits of charcoal here.
Is there anything to indicate that we've hit Tobruk as opposed to?
No, there's not. No.
Not ready to admit defeat, we dig a 3rd trench, but come up empty. We have no idea what the GPR picked up in this area, but it's definitely not a Tobruk.
Luckily, there's another target to dig. We know it's not the Tobruk, but we're hoping for a German bunker or a tunnel running off the underground headquarters.
Plenty of stories from Canadian sources about the Germans popping up behind them as they advanced across the beach. And they suspected that the whole area was honeycombed with tunnels. And this is the only hit that we've had so far that would indicate that maybe there is some weight to that story. Whoa, hello.
Yep. There we go.
You got some what?
Yep, that's concrete.
Now this looks promising.
Craig's found the edge.
Well, it's certainly man-made, there's no doubt about that. It's a bigger square than we've ever seen.
We really want to believe we found something from World War II. But unfortunately, no such luck. We uncover what appears to be a patio from the campgrounds.
And the rain.
After a disappointing day at the beach, even the weather seems to be telling us to quit.
Our first day digging on Juno Beach was not very successful. We didn't find the Tobruk we were after, and we were very deflated once we uncovered a 1970s patio that probably was there for a tent trailer. Going into day 2, it was just Dave and Craig and I, but we still had a couple of GPR hits that we wanted to uncover.
All right, this is what we're looking for right here. This is an ammunition bunker, and we suspect that there might be another one just behind us.
The last target identified by the GPR is just steps away. And the square pattern of the scanner image seems to support the presence of another ammunition bunker.
If there's any sort of steel reinforcements in there, it should light this up pretty big.
When we lined up the digger, it didn't take long before we hit concrete.
Whoa.
Well, this is a big slab, isn't it?
Part of me was skeptical, thinking, did we get another patio?
You know what? That's actually seeming to go back a little farther than we thought. It also looks like it's slanted, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If this gets any bigger, I'm starting to think that we may have found that particular shelter.
That particular shelter is the mystery bunker in the 1947 photo that we thought was buried in the protected dunes where we couldn't dig.
Oh, here we go. Look, there's the edge. There's the edge right there.
Boys, we have found the mystery bunker on Juno Beach. Look at it. The reference point, our northern star, right there is the observation post.
Yep.
In a direct line. We've got it.
This is bigger than an ammo
This
dump.
is one of the ones we were expecting to find on the beach, but the beach is now advanced. This is completely different. This is not an ammunition bunker.
It's a huge remnant. We really don't know the purpose behind it, but likely it was used as a personnel shelter.
Once we uncovered a bit more of this mystery bunker, we realized it would be impossible for our small team to take all the sand away to reveal it. Then Dave had an idea. Using the 1947 photo, he realized that the position of this bunker was just beside the other Tobruk that we were trying to find.
Craig, did you get your metal detector?
Sure.
Should give a big hit, right?
Iron.
It seemed like we had a good target, and it really did form the shape of what we believed is a Tobruk.
The Tobruk has been our ultimate target to find. And if we could literally place these two together, that would be war junk gold.
Yeah. How far down?
It should be the next scoop.
This could be one of the biggest scoops in history.
We heard the metal clunk against the cement.
Look at this. Here we go.
We hit pay dirt, boys!
It's just an absolute perfect condition.
Wow, we nailed it right in the middle.
Once we cleaned out the ring, the next objective was to move behind and see if we could find the door.
This is it.
That's the door?
There's the entrance right there.
As the shape of this machine gun position emerges from the sand, it's an awe-inspiring sight.
It's been filled in a lot. There's only about the top inch that isn't filled with sand.
These are the first images from inside this bunker in years. We have a lot more digging. I cannot believe how much we've exposed already, and just as only a few hours ago when we discovered it.
The significance of this find cannot be overstated. This was one of the Tobruks that caused the heavy casualties suffered by the Royal Winnipeg Rifles in those first few moments on D-Day. And without their determination and sacrifice in eliminating this position, the story here could have been vastly different.
What a day.
You believe this?
We've just dug out a Tobruk. Everyone knew that this Tobruk was buried somewhere along this sand dune. There she is. But to be able to show Marie-Ève, to be able to take somebody from the Juno Beach Center who's been here for years and show them the new discovery, it was really quite an overwhelming moment.
This is awesome. This is perfect.
With your observation post, your command post,
Yeah.
and now a fighting bunker, you got all the pieces.
We knew it was here, but knowing it on paper and being in it, it's different. Speaks volume, you know?
We'd like to revel in the success of our Tobruk discovery, but we have some loose ends to tie up on some of our other artifact stories.
In order to solve the mystery of Tombette Wood, the Juno Beach Center really came to bat. There is a gentleman who lives in this area who 70 years ago had a personal involvement with Tombette Woods.
A young Georges Regnault was part of the German forced labor program. He was responsible for bringing water on a daily basis to the soldiers stationed here.
That he remembers.
Qu'est-ce que c'était le rôle des bunkers ici?
C'était tous les canonniers, tout ça, parce que c'était toujours habité, les canons, vous savez, jour et nuit, hein, parce qu'ils faisaient tir DCA et tir en longueur. Ah oui, c'était des 88 qu'il y avait là.
88.
Ah oui, terrible, hein, le 88.
These were probably the most legendary of all weapons of the Second World War for the Germans.
Alors voyez-vous, ici, c'était tous les gars qui étaient là sur des lits superposés.
Combien d'Allemands ici, dans ce bois?
Je sais pas, moi, en tout, il devait y avoir 160 Allemands ici, en tout.
When he told us that over 160 men were housed or lived here, I could just imagine the bustling of activity here prior to D-Day.
Là, on va arriver au capitaine.
On va arriver au bunker du capitaine.
Aye.
He told us that this was actually the personnel area, with the guns being farther behind. But to protect this place from airborne attack and paratroopers, they had machine gun positions just behind the captain's bunker. And then suddenly the conversation took a completely different turn.
Je vais vous montrer même où il y avait le coiffeur.
The barber.
The barber.
As much as we've been talking about the military history that was going on here, when he started talking about the acquaintance and maybe even the friendship, if you will, that he made with the barber here, it was really remarkable.
Il était jeune. Il avait à peu près mon âge et tout.
This young German kid who was stationed here for quite a while, so George was able to somehow befriend him.
Il me dit, mes 4 frères sont morts en Russie. Hein, les 4 brothers. Mon père, ma mère et ma sœur tués dans un bombardement de Cologne. Il n'avait plus personne. Il n'avait plus personne. Ah oui.
After this wood was taken late on D-Day by the Chaudière Regiment of Quebec, his friend was taken prisoner.
Il était avec les mains sur la tête comme ça. Et puis alors, oh, il m'a aperçu. Il m'a fait comme ça. Ah, l'anglais, il est gardé. Hop, il est arrivé, puis il l'a bousculé un peu. Je lui ai dit non, pas celui-là. Pas celui-là.
This is quite the view.
Tombette Woods has to be one of my favorite stories that we've told. This little wooded ravine that many people, even locals, don't even know about. And through George, he was able to bring this area to life for us and really tell the human side of war. After the success of finding the second Tobruk, we started thinking, how did we miss the first one?
Using the oblique photo and the military intelligence map, it was hard to factor in just how much the shoreline had changed over the years.
When we started digging down there, we were only 40 meters away from this.
The second Tobruk.
The first thing we could see was a partial uncovering of the ring.
Oh, look!
Look at that.
That looks like an armor-piercing round to
It's
me.
right in here.
It's a 7.92. That's exactly what the Germans used for the machine guns and the rifles.
The bullet had to have been fired on D-Day from this Tobruk. And while looking at the photo, Dave has an idea.
If it is tilted a little bit, we might have relatively easy access to the door down there.
Oh.
Because it's closer to the surface, isn't it?
The excavator starts digging on the back end of the Tobruk. And it's not long before Craig springs into action.
Now, do you see any artifacts, anything?
It's in pretty remarkable condition.
When he found that doorway, there was nothing stopping Craig from getting inside.
There was only about a 12 to 18 inch space to crawl into. And of course, there was no way I was getting in.
It's in absolutely amazing condition. No kind of cracking, no kind of erosion on the inside here at all.
The fact that it was still in relatively pristine condition with little or no graffiti suggests that this was buried very quickly after the battle.
Just go into where the parapet is, the main area. What I can see, what looks to be a very clear bullet hole in the side.
Really?
This is one of the best examples of a war remnant taking us back to June 6, 1944. This bullet hole gives Craig a very clear picture of what happened on that historic day.
The person that shot it must have been almost in this position here. Any further back and you could not have got that right angle. So he was coming in and they were just firing at anything that was in this area.
Has to be a Royal Winnipeg rifle.
It's been a huge success finding artifacts that graphically illustrate the story of the Canadian troops that landed here on Juno Beach, knowing that they'll be able to tell this story to visitors for years to come. We have one more mystery to solve, the ID bracelet of Hugh Ivor Perry. We are awaiting 2 family members who are coming over from Canada, but we also just received Perry's service record.
His service record's incredibly detailed. Was there any information on his movement?
We know Perry was killed south of Caen on July 25, 1944, but we are hoping to connect his story to Juno Beach. We're searching for evidence in his service record to see if he landed here with the North Nova Scotia Highlanders on D-Day.
Ticket on strings to North Nova Scotia's July 9th, 44.
July 9th.
Yeah, and before that, he was with the Calgary Highlanders.
So he's a reinforcement. He didn't land on D-Day.
Apparently not. Well, Calgary Highlanders were with the 2nd Division. They didn't arrive until a month after. Hang on. I just noticed something here.
What's that?
Okay, this is a little strange. It looks like he bounced around a little bit before he joined the North Novas. He remained with the Calgary Highlanders officially, but he was lent to another unit, the Canadian Scottish.
The Canadian Scots landed here.
Guess when he was transferred? A week before D-Day. He landed with them here.
That's unbelievable.
Welcome to Juno Beach.
Hi there.
Armed with this new information, we're now meeting 2 of Hugh Perry's relatives, nieces Linda Roberts and Donna Bolton. They have no idea that we found their uncle's ID bracelet.
We are first taking them to the fields around Tilly-la-Campagne, 30 kilometers south of Juno Beach.
So your uncle, when he was making his approach, would have come down through these fields ahead of us and right across.
And it is here where their Uncle Hugh was killed.
We're interested to know how much you know about his wartime experience.
He was determined to go in the war when he was young, and his mom actually pulled him out of the war because she had lost a son earlier. She did not wish to lose another one to this. He was just determined to go in. So he started off in the Calgary Highlanders, and we're not really aware how he ended up being in the Nova Scotia Highlanders.
As we mentioned on the way down here, the attack came in at night. So as your uncle and the men from the North Nova Scotias started to come through these fields, the Germans let loose with their machine guns, their mortars. All we know from there is that his company, which was trying to outflank Tilly, took heavy casualties, and he was lost. You're getting emotional.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I was trying to think what it was like so many years ago, that young men so scared and everything. I just
can't imagine either.
Linda and Donna have no idea where we're taking them next. but it's time to show them why we've brought them to France. Something was found right here. I just want to give it to you to take a look at right now. Here's your uncle's ID bracelet.
Right there, so they would have just come across it because it's been buried. That's amazing. So it must have been torn off or whatever.
We do have an idea how it would have gotten here.
Oh.
It was really perplexing at first because we're about 15 kilometers from where he was killed. In the files, there was no record of the North Nova Scotia Highlanders coming through here before battle, but there is of them coming here the night after. And so at that particular time, his kit would have been with the rear area. And what seems most likely is that that remained behind in his kit when he went up to battle. And I guess during this particular time, it was lost here.
It was lost, yeah.
The lost ID bracelet is just one of the mysteries surrounding Hugh Ivor Perry. We take Donna and Linda back to Juno Beach to reveal the rest of their uncle's story.
This is a very special part of Juno Beach. I know you had questions about your uncle being in the North Novas and how he got to the North Novas and the Calgary Highlanders. Well, we have a service record with us.
You were absolutely right. He started with the Calgary Highlanders.
And at first we were confused because it said that he was with the North Nova Scotias as of July 9th, and we thought he was a reinforcement.
Because he was a signaler, a radio man, that was one of the reasons why he was in such high demand. So he was transferred from the Calgary Highlanders to the Canadian Scottish just before D-Day. And they landed right where we're standing.
Wow. That answers a question because we've been wondering.
Landed here on D-Day, fought with the Canadian Scottish through the villages that we just came from, and then got transferred to the North Novas only on July 9th.
Wow.
And that is so amazing that that bracelet landed here on Juno Beach.
It just opens a whole new world because you learn about a person that you knew existed but you didn't know much about. No.
There is one final piece to the story of Hugh Perry's bracelet. And it's inside the Juno Beach Center, where Mary-Eve is thrilled to introduce Linda and Donna to the collection.
One of the things that we try to do is present personal stories. That's what people love the most and can relate to.
When we reach the special gallery that displays artifacts found on the battlefield, Mary-Eve plans the perfect ending to the Hugh Perry story. The ID bracelet will now be on permanent display at the Juno Beach Center.
This is perfect because otherwise it would be in a drawer. Also, it makes it so his life wasn't lost in vain. It can actually provide knowledge for other people too.
Yeah.
Future generations now can continue to see the legacy and understand the story of this one particular Canadian soldier, which in many ways was representative of all.
This time on War Junk, we investigate and explore one of the bloodiest battlefields of the entire Second World War, Monte Cassino in Italy. We follow in the footsteps of the celebrated 1st Special Service Force by attempting to climb one of the most treacherous mountains in the area. We hunt for artifacts near the iconic abbey on top of Monte Cassino and find more than what we bargained for. But is this the explosive part?
Yes. Exactly.
And we try to solve the mysteries behind 2 special artifacts.
TPCLI, exactly what we were looking for.
This is War Junk Italy, the Battle of Monte Cassino.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
With our team, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefield.
Some big, some small.
all with a story to tell
and a mystery or two to solve along the way.
I can't believe we're in the area where the Battle of Monte Cassino took place.
Right in the heart of the Leary Valley. The battle raged here for 8 months in 43 and 44.
And so many nations took part. British, American, Canadians, French, Polish.
And for 8 straight months, the Allies battled the Germans for control of these hills. And what was at stake? Rome.
The Leary Valley was the direct path to liberating Rome. But the mountains flanking it had been turned into a series of enemy strongholds, and the Allies were faced with breaking through a number of German defensive lines as they moved north. By the end of 1943, Allied forces had already suffered massive casualties trying to break through what was called Hitler's Winter Line.
What a view.
This gives you a great example of what the Allies faced when they tried to push up here towards Rome. Every single one of these mountains were German-controlled and became really a battle of the hilltops.
Well, there's one hilltop here that I want to get to the top of, and it's that one.
Monte la Defensa, that's where the 1st Special Service Force made their legend, right up there.
10 years ago, I did a story on the 1st Special Service Force, and since then, it's been a dream of mine to get to the top of La Defensa.
You may get your chance, because our first meeting is with a gentleman who actually lives at the foot of La Defensa, and he has a museum dedicated to the 1st Special Service Force.
The 1st Special Service Force was one of the most unique and well-trained regiments in all of World War II. They were an elite fighting unit made up of both American and Canadian soldiers. This joint venture was a first of its kind.
What made them a special force was their intense training as paratroopers and demolition experts, as well as in winter and mountain warfare. Perfect for this area and climbing Monte la Defensa.
Museo Historicus?
Historicus, yeah.
That's where we're going, right?
We are meeting Angelo Andrioli, a former paratrooper with the Italian Carabinieri. This is a gentleman who has dedicated his life to studying the actions of the 1st Special Service Force on Monte la Defensa.
Wow.
Buongiorno,
Buongiorno.
sono Angelo Andreoli, presidente dell'Associazione Historicus. Benvenuto al Museo di Caspoli.
Grazie. David O'Keefe, and this is Wayne Abbott.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Molto lieto.
This is quite an interesting collection. This all comes from Defensa.
La gran parte della Defensa è il materiale inglese da Monte Cassino.
Can you take us around? Can you show us the rest of the museum?
Certamente, prego.
Angelo has built up his collection over 15 years. He hunts for artifacts on and around Monte la Defensa.
Oh, wow. Look at these walls. Are these all from the 1st Special Service Force?
Sì, questi sono alcuni oggetti in dotazione alla prima forza speciale. Nell'altra stanza del museo ci sono le altre cose che vengono dalla prima forza speciale. In particolare, questo è un caricatore del Johnson Light, uno dei 2 caricatori.
Oh, wow. This clip comes from what is called a Johnson light machine gun. And as far as we know, only the 1st Special Service Force used them. And they absolutely loved them because the standard machine gun at that time required 2 men. This one only required 1. So it was perfect for mountain operations. Oh, look at the photos. Oh, no, this is incredible. This is a unique collection. That is one incredible artifact.
These were some of the rarest photographs of the 1st Special Service Force in action that I'd ever seen, including some that were taken in the hours after they took Monte la Defensa. The operation commenced on December 1st, 1943, when the force begins its climb of La Defensa, moving only at night and in absolute silence. Then, early on the 3rd, they attack, and within a few hours, capture what was considered an impossible objective. The final cabinet he showed me was very sobering.
Questo elmetto è stato colpito da una raffica di MG 42.
Look at this. There's the bullet hole right there. Where did you find this?
È stata trovata in alto, sulla Defensa.
Do you think there's anything still left to be found on top of Defensa?
Sicuramente sì.
Well, since you've been up there before, would you be able to take us up?
Con i mezzi bisogna passare dal lato di Rocca Devantro, mentre invece è possibile a piedi, se ve la sentite, di fare lo stesso percorso che ha fatto la prima forza speciale nel 1943.
So we can actually go up in the exact same route that the 1st Special Service Force did in 1943.
Sì.
This is a recent aerial photo of the mountain. What are the routes that we can use to get up there?
Ci sono 2 alternative, o fare quella che ha fatto il primo reggimento, sicuramente il secondo canalone, che è quello che ha fatto il secondo reggimento della prima forza speciale che ha condotto l'assalto.
Now the question is, once we get under the cliffs, How do we get on top?
E bisogna scalare una parete.
Okay, and what are we going to need for this?
Si può fare anche senza fune, comunque sarebbe opportuno portarsela.
This is going to be grueling. Believe that?
We're going to climb Monte la Defensa. This was exactly what I was hoping for when we came into the Monte Cassino area.
To get a better picture for ourselves, Wayne and I decided we would drive to an olive grove just a few hundred yards from Angelo's house, right at the foot of La Defensa.
That looks monstrous.
Much more demanding than we ever thought.
Monte la Defensa stands 960 meters high and is the southernmost peak in the Liri Valley. The Allies had to take it first in order to move north up towards Monte Cassino. But many troops were killed trying to storm the summit in 1943. That is, until the 1st Special Service Force arrived.
So what were the two routes that Angelo outlined?
Well, you can see the 3 bowls, one there, one here, and one there. The third one is where the 2nd Regiment went up in December of 1943.
They went straight up there? During the attack, the force was made up of 1,800 men divided into 3 regiments. The 1st Regiment climbed the ridge on the north face, where they waited in reserve, while the 2nd Regiment crossed the east face, then ascended the steep cliffs to assault the positions on the summit.
So either way, no matter what route you take, when you reach the top, you're going to be walking in the footsteps of history.
Both of them seem daunting.
Do they ever?
Today is our climb to the top of Monte la Defensa. This is what I've been hoping for almost a decade and a half. We set off for the mountain just before sunrise. I'll be tackling the climb with teammate Craig Mitchell, while Dave has his own mission to accomplish. Well, this is going to be a challenging day, to say the least.
Yeah, you're going to have to come right across this face before you actually make the ascent up. That's going to be difficult.
We'll be hiking and climbing up nearly 7 kilometers of mountain, following the path of the 1st Special Service Force. They did it over 2 nights, moving only in darkness to avoid detection by the German forces above. We have the advantage of daylight, but the challenge of summer heat. They're calling for 35 degrees Celsius today. When we arrived at the trailhead, we met Angelo and Damiano, our 2 Italian guides. Ready to climb Defensa.
And when the boys are trekking up Defensa, I'm going to check out another lead.
Based on the challenges of summer heat and difficult terrain, we decide as a group to combine the 2 routes we've been discussing. We first tackle the route that the 1st Regiment took up the north face, and then we'll connect it to the final assault route of the 2nd Regiment. Just amazing to be walking up here right now. And we're only at the beginning of our journey. Within the first 100 meters, we came across German machine gun positions, still intact over 70 years later. These are the type of positions that the force had to come up against. You can just see the range of fire that they had. There would have been no trees here. The farther we climbed, the thicker the forest got. Oh, man. It's relentless. It really is. Angelo had a tough time deciding which route to take because all the trees had overgrown whatever path was there. We're going up this really steep section, very rocky. This is hard enough to go for us right now without people shooting at us in the dead of winter and at night.
While the team is making their assault up La Defensa, I'm driving to the town of Venafro, where there's a collector with a museum dedicated to the winter line. I was going there with one specific mission in mind, to find anything of a personal nature that could be connected with the 1st Special Service Force.
Oh, hello.
Hi, you must be Luciano.
Yes.
Dave
nice
O'Keefe.
to meet you. Come in.
Thank you.
We started to collect this kind of stuff since we were a child, because we grew up in the middle of the battlefields.
Not only did he have an incredible collection of material, But the way he laid it out, the way it told a story of the experiences here, made it perhaps one of the best museums I've seen in the area.
This picture is my grandmother.
You're kidding. How old was she?
11. I found this picture in Washington, the National Archives of Washington. I showed the picture to my grandmother, and she said, oh, yes, it's me.
So this isn't just a question of, you know, an interest in military history. This is family.
Back on the mountain, Craig and I are struggling to navigate through dense brush and still look for artifacts.
So what is this area right now?
It's the place where the 1st Regiment stayed for half an hour in order to change the batteries. This is a German emplacement.
They would have taken out this German position on their way up.
Exactly.
We had a clear objective. We were hoping to find any type of artifact that would help tell the story of the 1st Special Service Force as they climbed this mountain back in December 1943.
What is it? Oh,
Food tin or something like that.
this is war material.
But it's early yet. We hope we can find something directly related to the force.
While the team searches for artifacts on the mountain, I'm also on the hunt at the Winterline Museum.
This is a German bunker. Here you can understand how the German can control all the passes of the mountain.
This really gives a good representation of the kind of fighting that went on
Yes.
in the Italian hills. I'm still looking for something that is personal and something to do with the 1st Special Service Force.
We have a section dedicated to Special Service
Really? A
Force.
whole
Yes,
section?
yes, this way.
This was the first time I had seen the uniforms that they had worn, the special baggy pants, which were unique to the 1st Special Service Force, and also that incredibly symbolic red arrowhead patch.
Another particular item is the Johnson light machine gun.
That's the Johnson light machine gun.
It was made just for them.
Oh, this is great. Almost like a modern light machine gun. The other objective that I have is to find something personal, maybe with a name or identifying marker from a member of the 1st Special Service Force.
We found some canteens on top of the fence, and one has the name on it.
A canteen from Defensa with a name on it?
Yes.
I gotta see that.
A couple of hours into our hike, and we're walking along a path when Damiano looks down and finds 2 perfect cartridges.
Well, they're American.
This is the 2nd rest area of the 1st Regiment.
Exactly.
And they were here at what time?
5:30.
In the morning of
In the
December
morning,
3rd.
yes.
So just about an hour and a half before the battle.
They would have been reloading, they would have been getting themselves all prepared, making sure everything's all tightened up on their backs, and they would have just been slotting these into their magazines, and these were left behind.
And these are incredible artifacts just to find, just literally right here on the surface.
But the more surprising thing is when I started working over the soil, I found 3 more.
Run it over, see if there's anything else. Holy jackpot.
And then on top of it, Angelo said that these most likely came from that rare and unique machine gun that only the 1st Special Service Force used, the Johnson. Now we were uncovering true artifacts from the 1st Special Service Force.
While the guys are on the mountain, Luciano has something special in his collection to show me.
Those canteens were from La Defensa.
Yeah.
And this one has the name on the bottom, Lieutenant D.W. Caddy.
Oh, look at
5
that.
feet. We have the picture of
Really?
it with this platoon.
That's him. Oh, look at him. He's got the lieutenant's bar right in the forehead.
At this point, we've left the route of the 1st Regiment, who were held in reserve partway up the north face. We are now following the 2nd Regiment's path up to the summit.
The 2nd Regiment were the guys that attacked the top of the ridge. And we're in their probably last rest area prior to going to battle. Holy, guys. Is it a mortar?
It's a 60 millimeters mortar round, American.
Wow.
So you can see the fuse is damaged on the front there.
So is this dangerous right now?
It's live.
It would be
It's
better
live?
to live with.
Potentially it's very dangerous. It's still got all its charge in there, so if that took a serious whack, then that would make a big hole. But just touching it like that is relatively safe.
That is an incredible piece of war junk here, found right on Monte La Defensa.
In our wildest dreams, we didn't think we'd be finding so many remnants so definably from the 1st Special Service Force. But now, the real challenge begins.
Can we make it up here?
Not so easy, but
No, it's impossible.
Okay, why don't we try this? So what do you think, Craig?
It probably looks worse from where you are. Once you get your nose to the front, it's not too bad.
We scale the cliffs one at a time, passing the gear up. It's challenging, but worth it.
This is unbelievable. Absolutely gorgeous. What an incredible climb. The fact that the 2nd Regiment did this the morning of December 3rd in the dark. And silently, of course, because the Germans were just up there.
I have found what looks like a possible lead to a 1st Special Service Force veteran.
Lieutenant D.W. Caddy.
Oh, look at
5'3".
that. The 3rd Regiment, weren't they at the bottom in support?
Yes, they were in the back lines.
Cuddy was a platoon commander in the 5th Company, 3rd Regiment, that was in support of the assaulting troops. But at this point, it's still unclear what Cuddy and his platoon were up to that morning.
So this was found on top of Defensa,
yes.
but you believe that Cuddy never made it up?
I think not.
Oh, this is even better now. This actually comes with a mystery. How did Cuddy's canteen get on top of the mountain, yet he stayed below?
Unfortunately, Cuddy was killed a little later during the Anzio invasion. But what was fascinating here is not only do we have the artifact, we had a name and a photo of the man who actually used it.
I gotta get this off to the research team right away.
Where we are right now is the last rise before you hit the summit.
attack.
Right from here, about 30 minutes, 20 minutes before the battle, they would have come through here and scaled those cliffs, and the legendary attack began.
The route I'm taking to meet the team up at La Defensa is the same route that the Germans used to take to reinforce their positions on top. It is a tricky and treacherous, tiny little road.
5.5 hours of climbing, scrambling, and bushwhacking, and the mountain still has a few surprises for us.
We're only how many meters from the top?
20 meters.
Damiano looks down and look what he gets. A U.S. badge. Oh,
This is evidence that the force was here.
it's beautiful, look.
Yes.
What an artifact right from the top of Monte La Defensa.
This is what the whole battle for La Defensa was for. What you see in the distance is the last roadblock to Rome. That's Monte Cassino with the abbey down there and the mass behind. Once Defensa fell, it was just a question of time before the rest of the hilltops around here did. And when Cassino finally went, the road to Rome was open.
We are getting so near the summit. That final few feet. Craig and I were talking just about how they did this at night.
It's unbelievable. It really is. How do you do this? And in silence, absolute silence.
We made it!
Welcome back.
This is it.
You did it. Did it, boys. You did it. Congratulations. Now, there's something for history.
We followed the route first to the 1st Regiment, and then we transitioned over into the 2nd Regiment.
Exactly.
And that last few hundred meters going over those rises, knowing that's exactly where they were, is phenomenal. And then better yet, just maybe 100 meters down, this is what Damiano found.
Wow. That came off a uniform, didn't it?
Yeah.
We found what we were looking for. We found evidence of that battle and the route that those guys took up here. But we didn't find anything with a name or a number or anything personal.
Which may seem disappointing, but I had a little luck. And then I hit them with the big surprise, the Cuddy Canteen. Look at the markings.
So what is this?
This is a canteen that was used by Lieutenant D.W. Cuddy. He was an American in the 1st Special Service Force. As a matter of fact, he was one of the platoon commanders.
And where was it found?
Apparently, right up here.
At the top of Monte
You
La
got
Defensa.
it. What we need to do is see if we can find a descendant. Now it was time to move up the road towards Rome. Our next stop was the key to the Gustav line, Monte Cassino.
This is a rare and unique opportunity.
Yeah, it's not every day you get a chance to go to the Abbey on Monte Cassino.
You know, the site of one of the most controversial moments of World War II when the Allies bombed it in February of 1944.
Yeah, they suspected that the Germans were using this as an observation point to overlook the valley. But they were wrong.
The Abbey at Monte Cassino was established by St. Benedict in the 6th century, and it persevered through numerous wars and upheavals until that shocking day in 1944. Now we're going to interview one of the last surviving witnesses to the bombing. Monk Don Germano was a 12-year-old schoolboy in 1943. He witnessed the bombing from his home on a nearby mountaintop.
Perché io stavo sulla montagna, molto con le Abate, via del Conte, ho visto soltanto le bombe che cadevano, le esplosioni, fumo.
On February 15th, 1944, 250 Allied bombers dropped over 1,000 tons of bombs on this medieval abbey. It was completely destroyed.
Novembre 44. Io sono tornato per la montagna, ma allora era tutto bruciato. Non c'era una pianta, un verde, non c'era. La montagna adesso è tutta verde, perché sono cadute migliaia, centinaia di migliaia di proiettili che hanno bruciato tutto.
It is hard to believe now that this was completely destroyed 70 years ago, and then painstakingly recreated using some of the artifacts rescued from the rubble.
Don Germano tells us that for years afterwards, people would come up here to scavenge for scrap metal, sometimes encountering unexploded ordnance in their path.
It's haunting to realize what happened here on this exact spot. But one of the things that came out of this interview is the fact that there could still be a lot of artifacts on this mountain.
Oh yeah, and I think, you know what, that has to be our next objective. We have to get on that reverse slope and see what's there.
After meeting Don Germano, we are waiting for permission to investigate Monte Cassino. In the meantime, we head further north to an area of the Liri Valley that saw heavy action in the spring of 1944.
This is the first time we're actually investigating north of Monte Cassino.
Yeah, we're moving into what is called the Hitler Line area. The Hitler Line was the last of the German defenses in the Liri Valley, north of Monte Cassino. Canadian troops faced strong German opposition, breaking through the Hitler Line near the end of May 1944. This final victory cleared the way to Rome.
The research team has given us a lead on a collector in the Ceprano area, and apparently he's got his own museum that deals with the Hitler Line. Oh, buongiorno, you must be Alessandro. I'm David.
Alessandro Ottaviani lives just north of the Hitler Line. Entering his home, it's clear this isn't a public museum. Alessandro has a couple of small cabinets filled with objects that he's picked up on the battlefields near his home.
Did you find all this here in the area?
Tutto qui in zona.
When I first saw it, I thought it was a rather small collection, but then realized just how it really gave you a great indication of what life was like here in the Hitler Line, not only while the Germans were in it, but also when the Canadians broke through later on.
So is there anything with maybe some sort of identification marking?
Ad esempio questo accendino.
Oh, look at that. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before.
At first, I really thought this was going to be our best lead,
Questi qua.
until he showed us 2 ID bracelets.
Oh, here we go. Look at this, Whitford. FE, it looks like. And then PPCLI, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, one of the most iconic Canadian regiments of all. Oh, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we were looking for. Where did you find this? Around here in the battlefield?
Nelle zone all'incirca dove abbiamo visto prima.
So what I asked him to do then was to take us to the area where he picked it up.
On our way to the nearby forest, David checked the Commonwealth War Graves website.
His name's not there. That means he survived the war. He was not killed.
F.E. Whitford must have just lost his bracelet as the Canadian regiments came through this area. It's a crazy road here, guys. We're really off the beaten path.
There he is. So is this the spot here now?
Non qui, 100 metri più in là.
All right, let's go.
As we walked through the forest, I kept my eye out for any signs of trenches or foxholes, but this looked pretty serene, this area. There were no discernible signs of a frontline position.
Qui?
Right here.
Vado. Il bracciale.
Did you find anything else with it?
Forbici da chirurgo, siringhe, varie di bendaggi, tutto siringhe.
He found evidence of what seemed to be some sort of hospital or medical facility.
Questo era probabilmente un campo dove convergevano tutte le truppe prima dell'avanzata.
This bracelet is becoming more and more mysterious.
Well, we have some clues. First of all, we know this is a rear area position, so it wasn't the front lines. And also, all the other artifacts that were found in the immediate vicinity of the bracelet were all medical in nature. So there seems like a pattern that's starting to form here. Question is, what really happened with Mr. Whitford?
As we send this information off to the research team, we find out that we have been given permission to investigate Monte Cassino behind the Abbey. This is a rare opportunity to dig on one of the most famous battlefields in the world.
We're meeting Damiano, one of the guides that took us to the top of La Defensa.
Hi, Wayne.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
What's the plan of action today?
Today we will reach the top of Snake's Head Ridge, bloody point 593. It's an incredible place.
We followed Damiano through the winding roads up to Hill 593.
This whole area was absolutely pounded by both artillery and heavy bombers before the battle.
Well, it's something we need to be mindful of when we do start digging, because if I find any big iron signals, we're going to have to be extremely careful.
So even though we're looking for personal artifacts, there's a lot of dangerous stuff still in this mountain.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they keep this off limits.
Hill 593 is less than half a kilometer from the Abbey, and this is where the Polish Second Corps made their reputation. They captured this in late May of 1944 after some of the most bitter fighting anywhere in Italy.
We basically had two objectives. One was just to take a small area of this Monte Cassino battlefield and see how many artifacts we could find. The second objective is we really wanted to uncover something personal, something from a soldier who fought there. Watch the branch, David.
Yep. One at a time, boys.
Damiano took us into this thick forest. Now, the beginning wasn't so bad until we reached the target area. The rocks that were strewn all over this very steep hill just made it treacherous to walk on. And then Damiano told us the reason for this.
It's the result of heavy bombing.
This is actually from the bombing.
Yes.
This whole area just must have got hammered.
This is really gnarly. I'm gonna switch this rig to a smaller camera, and I think we just have to be very careful. As we make our way through the forest and over the rocks, it doesn't get any easier. Jeez, this sucks. Then we stumble upon some nasty stuff. What do you have there, Damiano?
An HE-30 German rifle grenade.
It's high explosive on the inside. You'd actually launch it from a rifle.
So how dangerous is this right now?
Probably best just to leave it in situ at the moment and report it to the authorities.
Exactly.
And then, further down, Craig finds something even more menacing.
Oh, jeez. Just lying here.
I saw it even before I got near it with the detector, and I could tell just from the shape of it, it was a particularly nasty piece of ordnance with a very big kick to it.
What is that?
It's a British
An anti-tank?
Yes,
Oh, it's a Piat?
Yes, a Piat.
Anti-tank ammunition.
It's in really good condition.
Really? But is this the explosive part?
Yes.
Exactly.
A handheld anti-tank weapon used by the British. Now this was dangerous.
This is meant to go through several inches of reinforced steel. That's got enough charge to make a hole in a tank.
I'm actually seriously getting worried right here because it's so treacherous. Nobody's been down here. And the stuff is just lying around in situ from 70 years plus. Okay, be careful, Craig, please. If we find a few more of these, then I think I might call it quits.
Everywhere the team stepped, it seemed like we were coming across UXOs, unexploded ordnance. It really gave you an idea of just how intense the fighting was and how potentially deadly it was for any soldier caught on that hill.
The fuse is probably about here.
Okay.
I actually think it looks like a mortar.
Yeah, it's likely a German 81 mortar.
Not far, Craig digs up something else.
It looks like a Mills 36, which is what was used by the British, the Canadians.
You're saying that the pin is out?
Yes. Whoever threw this could only have been about sort of 20 yards away.
This is close combat.
We have found an incredible amount of UXOs.
I'm coming up.
But we're still hoping to find more personal objects. Then Damiano calls us up the hill.
It's right down in a crevice here in the rocks. Something rusty?
Yeah.
Can you touch it?
Yes, yes.
Not a bottom?
My God.
Oh, canteen.
It's a British canteen.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, it's been there for a while.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
First thing is try to look for a name. But I just don't think there's anything on it. This is in rough shape, but it's a great artifact to tell the story of what happened here. This was a poignant moment of our investigation because finally we found something that belonged to a soldier and not just a UXO.
Wayne, come over here, mate. I think I might have something.
We start to find more personal items. We dig up something left behind by a soldier.
A spoon.
Lovely.
A spoon.
and then Craig finds a mangled German belt buckle.
Oh, I recognize it now. It's pretty battered up, isn't it? I mean, that's taken some beating.
Back in the woods, Craig starts to search in an area that appears to be a machine gun position.
Oh, there's another bullet.
Another bullet? Another shell.
Besides finding a lot of bullet cartridges, he spots something unusual.
Look at that. What is it? Well, it looks like a wing of some description. I can't really tell from just that tiny little fragment.
Would it be German?
Could be American. They had eagles on some of theirs. Damiano?
Yeah?
Could you come here for a minute, please? It's only small, but it looks like some sort of a wing or something like that.
Yes, the badge of the 2nd Polish Corps.
Polish?
Yeah.
You can tell straight away.
Yeah.
This is the first representation we found of Polish soldiers being here on what essentially is their crowning glory in World War II, the capture of Monte Cassino.
This is the kind of piece that we've been looking for all day, and to actually find a Polish piece right here on Monte Cassino, this is gold. Absolute gold.
We did it. We found real evidence of the fighting on Monte Cassino. Then, as we're driving down the mountain, we get some amazing news.
We just got information about Whitford?
Yeah, research team came through. They found the Whitford family.
The family?
Unfortunately, Whitford passed away in 2010. He did survive the war like we thought, but there's a curveball. According to the family, he was never with the PPCLI. He was fighting with the Westminster Regiment.
How could his bracelet say PPCLI and he's not with them?
I don't know. I'm perplexed. I mean, the other thing that we were told was that he was wounded on April 25th, 1944 in combat near a place called Vella Rotunda.
Well, why don't we go there?
Once we knew the regiment, I immediately accessed the Westminster Regiment's war diary. We then drive to the town of Vella Rotunda in the mountains northeast of Monte Cassino.
Right here.
So is this the spot?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, according to the Westminster's war diary, this is where they were on April 25th when Whitford was wounded. It makes sense. Perfect reverse slope.
But then how does ID bracelet end up 50 kilometers the other direction?
So can we get access to his service record?
No, we can't. He only passed away 5 years ago, and there's a 20-year moratorium. It's still classified.
Well, then maybe the family can help us with the two mysteries. How did the ID bracelet get from here to north of the Hitler line? And two,
whether he was ever with the Princess Pats or not.
This is one mysterious bracelet.
The mysteries behind the Whitford bracelet and the Cuddy Canteen have challenged us. But with intense research, we are thrilled to have found family members who have arrived in Italy. First, D.W. Cuddy's nephew, David, has come all the way from Alaska, but he has no idea that we have found his uncle's canteen.
What do you know of your uncle's wartime experiences?
I don't recall that my grandmother ever said anything about him, but, you know, that generation, they just kind of stood tall and kept silent and bore their grief.
We give David a brief background on his uncle's unit.
To Rome. They were essentially the forerunner to today's special forces. They could do everything.
And most significantly, he was part of an operation to take that mountain, Monte la Defensa.
We now want to show David the canteen, so our next stop is Luciano's museum in Venafro.
I'd like to introduce you to David Cuddy, who was the nephew of Lieutenant D.W. Cuddy.
Really?
Nice meeting you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. What's your steps?
Luciano takes David on a tour of his museum.
There are many personal items. Those are the kind of objects that can show you who they were.
Then into the room dedicated to the 1st Special Service Force.
During our researches on La Defensa, we found this canteen belonged to your uncle.
Oh, really? Isn't that wonderful?
You can see on the bottom the name and the unit.
Oh.
Cuddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So remember the mountain that we showed you?
Uh-huh.
This was found on top of it. He came here and he didn't know much about your uncle, but this was his.
You know, I think what I appreciate is that so many other people like you appreciate what they did.
Thank you to your uncle that came here to fight for our society.
But there's still a lingering mystery that Dave and I have been struggling with. Did D.W. Cuddy actually make it to the top of La Defensa? Dave has some information from the war diaries that may shed some light on this question. But first, Luciano is going to take us up to the spot where he found Cuddy's canteen.
Here's the place. Yes. Here is where I found the canteen, right here. So I start to find information. I found the picture of him leading the platoon,
and about the story of what he did.
There is this mystery on whether or not your uncle stayed at the bottom of Defensa and gave his canteen to people who were coming up to supply the troops up here, or whether he made it. And Dave actually got into the files and found some information to shed some light on that.
Well, it turns out that what Luciano heard is partly correct. Some of the 3rd Regiment may have stayed at the bottom, but we know for sure that the 5th and 6th companies made the climb on several occasions, not just one. Your uncle came all the way up here leading his platoon, bringing much-needed supplies to the top. So, more than likely, he left it when he was up here.
So now we could probably say you're within a few feet of where your uncle was back in December 1943.
I didn't serve in the military, and I just feel blessed that I never had to experience what he and all those other folks went through.
Back down in the valley, we have great news. The family of F.E. Whitford is now here.
Surprisingly, 4 of them have made the trip from Western Canada.
Good morning.
There, morning.
Including Frank Whitford's widow, Margaret,
It's a pleasure for you to come with us.
and his 3 children, Jim, Kathy, and Sharon.
Hi, Sharon. I'm David.
Come over here, that'll be great.
The first stop is to take them to the small town in the mountains where Frank Whitford was wounded. On the way to Valerotunda, Kathy tells us about living with her father and a very different kind of battle scar.
I can remember many nights being woken up by my dad just screaming and screaming, and my mom trying to console him, and we didn't understand, and it was just horrible seeing my dad like that.
Frank's trauma affected the whole family.
For him, it was just so, it's hard for me to explain, really.
Just really traumatic.
He'd waken in the night and he'd just be in a panic. I'd have to try and calm him down. It was very, very hard on him.
Now it's time to tell the family what we uncovered in the war diaries.
At the end of April, on the 25th, there's a notation about 2 men who were wounded by shell fire right where we're standing right now. We're pretty confident that one of them was your father.
Your father was wounded probably within 100 feet of this spot.
Unreal.
Next stop, 50 kilometers down the road to Alessandro's.
We know your father definitely came through this area.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
This is members of the Whitford family.
Alessandro. Nice to meet you, Alessandro.
What a wonderful collection.
This is the reason why we brought you here. Because Alessandro has something of Frank's that we want you to see. What he found on the battlefield.
Oh, Mom, it's his tag. Look what it says.
Wow. Can you see it, Kathy?
It's just so hard. Can't even put it into words. It's just so emotional.
I never thought there'd ever be anything like this.
But there's one more mystery to solve.
In the middle has the regiment PPCLI, and we're trying to see if you had any information, because all we know is that he fought here with the Westminsters. But his bracelet in the middle.
But it was then that the biggest surprise occurred. Jim Whitford pulled out a photo album and scrapbook that he brought all the way from Canada.
Right? This is a picture of my dad when he just entered into the service.
As we leafed through the album, there was one incredible piece of evidence which they had overlooked.
There we go. Guys, here's the evidence.
Oh, that's what we needed.
It's incredible, after all the research we'd done, that this photo album shed the most light on the biggest mystery behind the ID bracelet. So Frank joined the Princess Pats in 1943, then transferred to the Westminster Regiment before going overseas. For some unknown reason, he never told Margaret or the kids.
Then I noticed something else that really took this to a completely different level.
As I was going through, I noticed this. Taken on strength, 16 Canadian Special Employment Company from 2nd Canadian Exhaustion Center, 13th of September 44. So he was attached to this particular exhaustion unit, which was rather experimental. They were dealing with people who had suffered massive traumas in battle, which could explain what they were doing down there in the valley.
Now it all makes sense. After his wounding, Frank Whitford suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. He lost his bracelet when he was being treated in the camp near Alessandro's house. Sadly, like so many other soldiers, he carried the scars of battle for the rest of his life.
A ridare questo oggetto personale ai familiari, alla moglie e ai figli, perché è la cosa più bella che potete avere.
Thank you so much.
But you got it. Yeah.
Now, after 70 years, Frank Whitford's ID bracelet was going home.
That's beautiful.
Two artifacts with very different stories, both representing the service and sacrifice of the soldiers of the Italian campaign. This time on War Junk, we investigate the battlefields of northern Holland. We take to the streets of the city of Groningen, where an urban fight raged in April 1945.
They're taking fire as they come up this way.
What evidence still exists from this battle?
So where are we meeting him?
Oh, it's amazing to see the pockmarks.
What will we find when we get a chance to dig on the site of a former POW camp? And we search for incredible artifacts that depict the final weeks of the war. This is War Junk Holland, the road to liberation.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
With our team, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefield.
Some big, some small.
All with a story to tell
and a mystery or two to solve along the way.
This is one of the most serene battlefields we've ever explored.
Yeah, the looks can be deceiving. This was the site of some of the bitterest fighting in the end of the Second World War.
And we're following the same route that the Canadian Army took on their way to liberate Holland.
Yeah, you're right. But the road didn't start in these fields. The road to liberation started further up ahead in a place called Groningen.
It's special for the team to come to Holland, to investigate and explore the battlefields where such a monumental moment took place, the liberation of Europe. So they fought through these streets?
Yeah, imagine being a Canadian soldier having to fight in this environment.
Well, it's basically urban warfare.
Yeah, you had no clue what you were going to find at the end of each street.
Mid-April 1945, Canadian and Allied forces moved through northern Holland. They faced desperate German opposition. 2nd Canadian Division's main objective is the city of Groningen. These were the final weeks of the war before liberation, and this area is the focal point of our investigation.
So where are we meeting him?
Up there.
Our first stop was Groningen Tower, the highest point in the city.
We are meeting local historian Joel Stopels. He has studied the Battle of Groningen in great detail.
How are you? Good. You must be Joel.
Yes.
Now this is the ultimate view of the Groningen battlefield.
And the Allies come from this side on Friday the 13th, 1945, and from the southwest to liberate Groningen. Very difficult for the Canadians and the Allies to fight over here.
Joel is a very passionate young man who really understands history, and in particular the Battle of Groningen.
The problem was you have all the bridges, so they must cross each bridge to come on in the city. But the problem was in the southwest, the Germans blow up the bridges. So it was difficult for Canadian troops to liberate Groningen.
But the challenge I felt was, what are we going to find within the city of Groningen that actually tells the story of the battle?
But what about battle damage? I mean, are there still scars of that battle here in the buildings below?
Yes, a lot of scars left here in Groningen because there's a lot of old buildings.
Joel didn't have to take us far to see evidence of battle damage. It was right at the base of the tower.
Turn here.
Oh yeah, you can see it already here.
Yeah, here. Also bullet holes.
Look at that. Oh, it's amazing to see the pockmarks. So you're saying that these came from Canadian gunfire then?
Yeah, and the Canadian gunfire comes from the buildings behind the tree. And the Canadians had anti-tank weapons and machine guns and fired over the German positions around the tower.
I mean, what an incredible reminder this is of what happened here in 1945. 70 years later, you still see the signs of war here in Groningen.
We move from what was the German positions near the tower to the Canadian positions on the south side of the Great Market.
So this is it. This is where the scene of the final battle in Groningen took place.
Yes, and the Germans were over there.
Now, the famous newsreel that we see, it was shot from here, wasn't it?
Yeah, shot from here. Yeah, and you see the Canadians walking around the Great Market, and you see all the destroyed buildings on the east side and the north side. It was terrible. That changed the Great Market forever. We have a lot of old buildings over there, and they're completely destroyed.
The newsreel footage takes you back, especially when you're standing almost in the exact spot that the cameramen did in 1945.
Well, with all the fighting that went on here in the Groningen area, have you had any luck finding artifacts?
Yeah, a lot of artifacts stay behind here at the battlefield of Groningen. And I have an exhibit at the museum.
An exhibit?
Of artifacts, yeah.
Well, that sounds like our next stop.
Now, one of our objectives is to truly find special artifacts that will represent the last few weeks of the war. We're hoping we could find something special within Joel's exhibit.
These are the first artifacts I have built here for the exhibition. German swastika flag captured during the Battle of Groningen.
Are these all your artifacts that you've collected?
Yes, all my artifacts.
It was quite obvious that not only did he have a passion for history, but a great attention to detail.
Each display that he created gives you an idea of what it would have been like to be a Canadian or a German soldier in Holland in 1945.
So do you have anything maybe of a personal nature, something with maybe a name or a number or some sort of marking that we can use to help identify it?
Yeah, we have some personal artifacts who stay behind here in Groningen after the battle. But we must go upstairs, you can see it there. We have here 3 helmets, and all 3 helmets were found in Groningen. Ooh. We have one helmet with a name.
Joe opened the case and then pulled out a helmet.
This was the helmet.
Oh, wow. Wow, look at this. There's a whole bunch of names on here.
After he handed me the helmet, I took a look at it, and what really jumped off immediately was the name.
Red Milner. Now, is that the person who owned the helmet?
The person who owned the helmet. The helmet was found after the Battle of Groningen.
It was an unusual helmet with more writing than we're used to. And as Dave moved the helmet around, you could also see Royal Regiment of Canada.
What do you know about Milner?
Because we know the KIA list from Groningen. Clarence was his first name.
Clarence.
He's been killed in the southwest part of Groningen. And he was with the Royal Regiment of Canada. And they crossed the channel over there in the southwest.
And then he surprised Wayne and I yet again.
We have a little photo about him.
Really?
The photo, you see them laying on a stretcher. And there the picture was taken about Milner.
He told us there was a photograph of Milner taken moments after he was killed in the battle.
So now you have the name Clarence Milner, the regiment, but you haven't been able to find a family.
No, we have no information about it. Only the story, he'd been killed here in the picture, and that's the only thing we had about Milner.
You can imagine what a family would think being reunited with this 70 years later.
Incredible artifact. Next thing, we need to see that photograph.
So you're taking us to the exact location where the photo was taken?
Yes. It's the exact location, it's the same building.
So we're just going up here?
Yeah. Number 100.
104, 102.
This is number 100.
Right here.
Yeah.
When we arrived on the scene, he opened up a book which contained the photo, and I was absolutely amazed at what I saw.
Oh my God, look at this. The buildings are exactly the same.
It's the same building, yeah. And you can see here, the body of Clarence Milner, and he lays over here.
So the Royal Regiment were advancing up this street, and they're taking fire as they come up this way?
Yes, a lot of German snipers in the buildings. The helmet was over here. You can see it on a picture. You can see also the Canadian soldiers inside. This little space.
Yeah, you
Maybe
can.
they hide, but...
Well, you wonder if he wasn't hit here, lost his helmet, And then maybe they dragged him over for safety.
Over here, yeah.
So how do you know that the body that we're looking at right now is that of Milner's?
The author of this book researched the picture, but also the helmet. But a lot of veterans came over from Canada after the war to remember the Battle of Groningen. So he talked with a lot of veterans also from the Royal Regiment of Canada.
And when did he do this?
In the 1980s. He passed away a couple of years ago, so we can never ask him. That's very sad.
Joel believes the local historian who did his research. He supposedly interviewed some of the Royal Regiment who are seen in the photograph, and he truly believes that that is Milner's body.
Well, it's a very interesting collection of evidence you have, the photograph and the stories so far, but we're really going to have to investigate this deeper.
The Milner helmet is an incredible find for us. We are now eager to begin the analysis and research of the photograph.
You know, Dave, the more I look at this photo, the more I question it.
Oh, I know. And it is a remarkable photograph. We've never had anything that connects us to an artifact like this.
But is that a body?
It's hard to tell because the resolution on this photo is not very good.
I know. It's something white. Now, they say it's a man on a stretcher, but could that be flowers in a flower bed? Or did, say, a civilian come out and put a white sheet?
You know, I've been working on that, and look what I found. The Army was using light-colored khaki sheets to wrap up the dead for burial. This was actually shot in Groningen during the battle. That is a Canadian soldier being taken for burial, wrapped in the same light-colored canvas wrap.
It's identical. So this proves that this is a body in the photo. But is it Milner's?
That's the next question.
As we continue our investigation into the Milner helmet, we are still on the hunt for more artifacts that help tell the story of the Liberation of Holland. Our research team has given us a new lead, this time 50 kilometers south of Groningen in the town of Emmen.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm David O'Keefe.
Erik Spiegelaar. Hi. Welcome to my museum.
Wow.
Can I invite you?
Please. What we're doing is we're working on the last few weeks of the war. So we're looking for any artifacts from that period.
I can show you a lot of them.
Great. As soon as we walked in, I really didn't think this was going to be fruitful, simply because we walked into, I guess, what was his office part of his museum. But then the farther we went in, suddenly it all opened up. And now you could see weapons, you could see uniforms pulled off the fields of battle all over Holland, not just in this area.
It's coming from everywhere.
Well, the interesting thing is, I mean, what we want is any type of personal item, anything maybe with a name, a number, a mystery attached that we can help you solve.
Yes.
Do you have anything?
Yes. How many do you want?
Really? And as soon as I asked that, the floodgates opened.
This helmet.
Look at that.
What number? Canadian number?
Wow. Sutherland.
Sutherland.
So it's B92348, and it looks like, is that a lance corporal or a lieutenant? And it says Sutherland, R. So R Sutherland. Okay, this is a great one.
Yeah.
Not far, he showed us a second helmet.
Have you another one?
Really?
Royal Montreal Regiment.
That's my hometown.
Captain H.G. Logie.
The second helmet I found really special because as a Montreal boy, I could appreciate the markings of the Royal Montreal Regiment. Wow, now this is interesting. Now the RMR, as they're known, the Royal Montreal Regiment, were actually attached to 1st Canadian Army and worked as their security force throughout the Second World War. Now this is extremely rare.
And not much further away, he surprised us again with a third helmet.
Also this one.
Another helmet.
Another helmet.
This was amazing, and I started to wonder why so many helmets. And the only conclusion that we could draw at the moment was that at the end of the war, when the men were going home, they left these intentionally as souvenirs for Dutch families.
It is a very strange one with the names on it. He started with the F.
The first marking we saw was FWA.
And over there, where is the name?
Oh, F.W. Armstrong.
Camerons of Canada.
And then Eric surprised us. He had a small card with a bit of information that he must have forgot about when he first showed us the Armstrong helmet.
Wait a second. It says Armstrong was an honorary captain.
Honorary captain, what does that mean?
He might have been a doctor. He might have been...
Priest?
Yeah, he could have been a padre. because they weren't necessarily part of the mainstream military. They were brought in given the honorary ranks of captain so they could perform their duties. Now, that's interesting.
So Armstrong might not have been a fighting soldier?
No, he could have been a medic, could have been a medical officer.
Now, this was incredible evidence for us. And then when I was taking pictures of the helmet, and go to the next one, just under Camerons of Canada, I noticed something else. Something that Eric didn't point out earlier.
What's that say right there? I don't know. Very hard to see.
It's F.W. Armstrong, Camerons of Canada, right?
Yeah, honorary captain. Padre.
No
it says
way.
Padre.
No, right there.
P-A, probably the D's missing, R-E, Padre. That makes sense without being an honorary captain. You either had the regimental medical officer or the Padre, and that's the only two.
So Armstrong
was a Padre. Now that's unique.
After uncovering so many great stories with regards to the helmets, we have another objective here in the Groningen area. This time, to dig for artifacts. But finding places to dig in northern Holland is a little more difficult than some of the battlefields we've investigated. Most of the farmers have reclaimed the land, but Joel says he's arranged a great spot for us to dig.
So we're digging where today?
The German prisoner of war camp, called Zuidlaar.
Oh, that was one of the biggest ones in this area, wasn't it?
Yeah. After the Battle of Groningen, 5,000 Germans were taken prisoner, and most of these Germans moved to the camp at Zuidlaar.
So what do we expect to find?
Yeah, all kinds of personal things, maybe medals, masting, all the things the Germans had when they moved in the camp.
Well, we've never searched on a POW camp.
Joel explains that the camp, run by the Canadian Army, was located 15 kilometers south of Groningen, near the town of Zuidlaren. This seems like a unique opportunity until we arrive and see the enormity of the farmer's field. But then luckily, we have help.
Joel introduces us to Tees, a local digger who knows the area well, and Michael, who's a specialist in ground-penetrating radar.
So, Tees, where was the POW camp?
The biggest part of it was where the houses and the industrial buildings are right now, and a smaller part of it was in the field just over here.
Okay. Have you ever searched this area before?
Nope, never.
No? This is good.
And we have permission from the landowner to search.
Even though Tees and Joel seem confident, there's no way of really knowing whether a POW camp existed here or not. There are no buildings or structures remaining, which makes this a real challenge. But Joel does have one excellent piece of evidence that sheds more light on the story. A photo taken in 1945, right after the war.
So this is the area?
This is the area.
Yeah, look at that. Look at all the tents. So where are we now on this photo?
I think around this area.
Right around here, right? So we're on the fringes of the camp.
Yes.
So this looks like the target area.
Yes.
It really is an incredible photograph. It shows hundreds of tents spread across the field. From what Tees and Joel say, and from the evidence on the photo, our target area is a narrow patch of land right on the edge of this field.
So we pushed ourselves as close to the fence line as possible and then carved out about a 30 by 100 meter swatch. Now this was where we were going to start.
Tees uses a metal detector. It will find objects 5 to 30 centimeters below the surface. Michael's ground-penetrating radar will pick up deeper items, up to 2 meters. The GPR sends a signal down that reflects off anything buried below. Right away, Tees gets a large number of hits.
That's a lot, Dave.
Quite a few.
Besides looking for evidence to prove this was a POW camp, we are also searching for something else.
What the locals suspect is that somewhere in this POW camp, when the Germans eventually left, they actually dug pits and threw a lot of the unnecessary equipment into those pits and buried them.
These dumping pits are really untold stories of liberation. A treasure trove of artifacts discarded at the end of the war. We're hoping to find one. But first, Tees digs up key evidence.
Here, take a look at this.
What is it?
I think it's from a tent.
Really? Oh, from an islet?
Yeah.
This is fantastic because from the photo that we have seen, you can see the Germans were living in tents. So this is the first thing that absolutely confirms that we are digging in the right place. This is the islet from a tent.
This is the evidence we've been searching for. We know we're definitely on the site of the POW camp.
Pretty soon we got more hits. There it is. Oh wow, look at that. That's a belt buckle. Mm-hmm. Not a belt buckle, but looks like it came off of webbing, doesn't it?
Shoes or I don't know.
It's pretty small, so it looks like it may come from a strap. Too small to be off of a belt, but definitely World War II. Seems to be.
We then dig up a small button that would have come off a shirt. Whether it was German or Allied, we can't tell.
Well, definitely, we have something that came off of a uniform or some sort of clothing.
Then we find something that would have been used by all men at the camp.
Looks like some kind of toothpaste tube.
Really?
Yeah.
But is that actually toothpaste that was held in that?
Something like it. The Germans really loved stuff for their faces and their feet.
I mean, this is really amazing. I mean, this is kind of the stuff we expected to see, right? The stuff that of everyday life.
I find this fascinating because this may be German, but it could also be part of the Canadian rations given to the German soldiers. And the last thing we found was maybe the most special.
Is that a button?
No, it's a coin. It's a Dutch one.
What year? Looks like it's 1 cent.
Yeah, in Dutch we call it a leeuwencent, but in English you can call it a lion cent. Yeah, it's from 1873.
1873?
Yep.
This small coin seems at first just an artifact from a half-century before the war, until...
How long were these in circulation for?
Until the Second World War.
Until the Second World War. So there's also a possibility that not only do we have something that was minted in 1873, but it was in service until the end of the Second World War. More likely, given the fact that we have the camp, you wonder if some of the Germans here for 4 years may have had this with them. Wow, that's fantastic.
This coin most likely was dropped by a German prisoner in this field over 70 years ago. We have dug up great artifacts from the POW camp, but we unfortunately failed to find a dumping pit.
Luckily, we have a second location that Joelle has secured. A few kilometers away is a small field on private land. During World War II, this was part of a German airfield, and then was used as a Canadian camp late in the war.
Wow, it looks like you already have the GPR working.
Yeah, indeed.
How's it going so far?
Amazing data, many objects.
So on that note, Michael marks out some target areas, and we begin to dig.
I mean, look at the stuff we're finding so far.
We are searching a small field south of Groningen, looking for a pit where Allies dumped war materials after liberation. We think we may have found one.
Oh, look at this.
It's like a bicycle pedal.
Bicycle pedal.
That's precious.
Well, you know the German army were using bicycles.
Looks like a clip of ammunition.
Look at that, Dave. What is that?
Tease finds a clip from a Dutch rifle.
Then more and more artifacts came out of this hole.
I believe it came from a razor.
Razor?
Yeah.
Okay, so we definitely hit some sort of dump right here.
Great.
Seems to be not a cartridge.
This actually looks Belgian. This was produced by the British and then sold to the Belgian army and then later on captured by the Germans.
And then we dig up something truly different.
That's weird.
Look at that. It's got to be the longest bullet I've ever seen.
You're saying that somebody took 2 bullets and put them on top of each other?
That's what it looks like. The only thing I can think of is all that trench art we used to see in World War I with the shells. I wonder if somebody might have been doing the same thing here.
That is precision, though. It was just amazing to see the variety and the different artifacts that we were pulling out of the ground.
Nice small bottle.
What the heck is that?
Sterilizer?
Let's see. Look at this.
Sterilizer?
E-R-L-I-Z-E-R. Is that German or Dutch?
Canadian, I guess.
You think it's Canadian?
Well, that is so neat.
To find this bottle intact after 70 years.
As Tease continued deeper, he found maybe the best item of all.
Okay. Oh, this looks very promising.
What the heck is that?
It's from a German visor cap.
No way. Look at it.
The uglies.
Yeah. Holy God.
This is a good find.
That's a great find.
This would have come from the cap of an officer stationed at the German airfield. We went on to find more and more items, to think that these dumping pits are spread all over this area of Holland. Tees will be digging for years to come.
After a great dig, our research team has found a lead to a museum just outside downtown Groningen. We don't quite know what to expect until we arrive.
Yeah, it should be coming up right here. Oh my. Look at this place.
In front of us was this massive museum with a Canadian flag and remnants of military vehicles and an aircraft outside.
Hello there.
Hello. Wayne Abbott. Yeah, Heiko Waters.
Hi, Dave O'Keefe. We weren't expecting this.
My museum, you see. Foundation, Canadian Allied Forces.
Fantastic.
1945.
I'm just gonna grab the camera.
This looks promising. Ooh, you can smell the diesel.
I invite you in my museum.
Thank you. Look at this place. These are all yours?
Yes, that's my collection that I have for over 35 years now.
As soon as we walked in, I couldn't believe what I had seen. This place was massive inside, and there were vehicles of all types. Some I had never seen before.
I'm stunned. All this stuff was found in the area,
Mostly
roughly.
the stuff of what we have here was found here in Groningen.
German staff car, American tanks from the end of the war, bicycles, scout cars I can see, Dodge trucks.
What really caught my eye was this tiny staff car.
Still with the original seats and everything inside. The markings here, was that from the Dutch SS?
Yeah, that could be for the Dutch SS, but this is original SS.
This was the German secret state police, the Gestapo. He didn't want that showing up.
Then he took me around the corner and showed me a British motorcycle.
Yeah, that's a Metzlers.
These are really rare, aren't they?
There were built a lot of them in the Second World War, but at this moment they are very rare to get in this stage.
And this was British built, right?
Yeah, this is British built, but also Canadian used.
We saw vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. These are in mint condition.
It's extraordinary that these vehicles were all found in various states of disrepair, and Heiko and his team have brought them back to their original condition.
Further down the aisle was an armored car. This one was painted to look like the Polish Armored Division, which of course fought with the Canadians up in this area near the end of the war.
Yeah, there's no leg room in here. I mean, this would be that'd be too tight. I'd have a chance getting up in the turret, though.
Yeah, you can climb up.
Well, it should be good.
These armored cars were used in the Groningen area to gather crucial reconnaissance information for the Allied armies.
So basically, the idea was to get in, stir up whatever they could, see where the German positions were, radio them back, get back with the information. After all these years...
Sounds like new.
Does it ever?
This was one really well-restored machine. It took a while to get through the rest of the museum. But then Heiko surprised us.
Well, I have one vehicle left to show you.
Really?
And we can go through it, and it's standing there.
Is that what I think it is?
Well, tell me.
Bren carrier.
Yeah, you're right. It's a Canadian-built Bren carrier.
These are great. I mean, these are such iconic vehicles. They were the equivalent of what the Humvee is today, or the Jeep was for the Americans during the Second World War. These were the ultimate utility vehicle.
If you'd like to drive with me, we can drive.
Seriously?
Yeah.
We get to drive this?
Yes, we can drive this.
All right, let's do it.
When those doors opened and that Bren carrier took off, it was thrilling. It just takes you back 70 years. You see these machines and those old black and white newsreels.
You know, it's amazing to think that a lot of the Canadian soldiers went right through North and West Europe in vehicles like this.
It drove perfectly, at least for the first little while.
We overheated the vehicle.
The Bren carrier finally conked out. It just couldn't take the kind of pace that we were putting it through. So now it was a question of trying to get it restarted.
It's too hot.
When Heiko realized this wasn't going to happen, we called in some reinforcements. Bring it back. We were able to tow it the 50 meters back to the warehouse. But despite the inauspicious ending, God, was that fun.
So we did it? Well, thanks so much. I mean, that was just such an amazing experience, being in this vehicle 70 years after the war.
For me too. Every time again when I started the engine, I think, oh, okay, what was it for 70 years ago for those guys?
Does take you back, doesn't it?
After an intense search on the items we discovered at Eric's museum, we found one family, the family of F.W. Armstrong.
We have brought over to Holland Frank Armstrong's son, Doug, and his wife, Mary.
What's unique about this story is this is the first artifact that Wayne and I have ever dealt with that revolves around a chaplain.
We're just wondering what you know of your father's war experiences.
He mentioned the fact that it was part of his task to identify some of the dying and also the dead on the Canadian side, and that was a difficult task for him.
It's heart-wrenching to hear what chaplains like Frank Armstrong had to experience on the front lines. We think the most appropriate place to take Doug and Mary is 100 kilometers south of Groningen to the Holton Canadian War Cemetery.
It was here that many of the men that Frank Armstrong tended to during the last couple of weeks of the war now lie forever. These are all soldiers that were killed in the Battle of Groningen.
Yeah, 15th of April.
And this soldier here, Private Coffin, was from your father's unit. And he was killed on the 16th of April, just in the final moments of the Battle of Groningen. And you can imagine what your father faced on a daily basis.
So how did the war change your father when he came home?
It was moments such as you described that changed him from being a volunteer to fight for his country to one who would only consider a pacifist's role.
As we walked through the cemetery, Doug clung to the briefcase he brought all the way from Canada.
He told us that it belonged to his father, but we had no idea what was inside.
The first thing he pulled out were photographs, and this was the first time that Wayne and I had seen the face of Frank Armstrong.
So that's what he looks like.
What happened next was an incredible surprise.
This is my father's field communion set, which he took with him when he was giving the last rites to soldiers in the field. And this was the goblet for the wine, and this is the plate for the bread, or the host as it's called. And this particular host comes to us directly from 1945.
Really?
So
Right
that
there.
is over 60, 70 years old.
And this is what he had on the battlefield.
Indeed.
That's right.
Indeed.
The fact that Doug's father had it with him here in Holland in 1945 made this extra special. Then it was time to take him to Eric's museum.
When we arrived at Eric's museum, there was a bit of a twist in the process.
Now, Doug and Mary had no clue at what artifact we were about to show them. And Eric didn't know what family we were bringing to his museum.
Hello.
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 This is Eric Zwigler. He is the owner of the museum here. And this is Mary and Doug Armstrong.
Oh, ye.
Me too.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. You can come with me. I will show you
Thank
some
you.
of the museum.
Thank you.
All right.
It's based on the different armies of the war. The largest part of my collections. It's the tribute to the liberators.
You know, Eric has something very special that belonged to your father.
Okay. It's the helmet.
And before we knew it, he had blurted out what it was they were there to see.
So I think, which helmet is it?
This has really got you, hasn't it?
It's really got me.
This is fantastic.
No, Eric is so overwhelmed.
Yes, I am.
Why don't you just show them?
So, this is the helmet. And he wrote his name.
Oh, my. That's distinctly his writing, no question about it. Clearly, it belonged to him. That's absolutely phenomenal. For those who discovered it and those who preserved it, I am very grateful. This is something he wore to protect his life while he was here. That's very special.
Then Doug opened up his father's case.
This particular goblet would have wine.
Eric was taken back by what he was seeing here.
The bread. And this bread, it dates back to 1945, this actual bread.
That's F.W. Armstrong. We've had his helmet all these years.
It's great. It's fantastic.
So here you go. The helmet next to the photo.
And then a helmet next to the photo. Isn't it great?
It's stunning.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's very great.
Then something happened that totally shocked Dave and I.
I just want to say that my father admired the Dutch people very much. And I think he would be honored if this remained here in Holland. And I would like to appoint you custodian of this communion set.
Thank you. I'm speechless, sorry.
We're honored to have this in your collection.
It will be given a special place with helmet to it.
Now, for the first time in over 70 years, the helmet that Frank Armstrong wore and the communion set that he had on the battlefields of Holland were finally together once again.
On April 16, 1945, the city of Groningen celebrates liberation. Citizens and soldiers gather in the streets. Unfortunately, Clarence Red Milner is not one of them. He's killed 2 days before, but his helmet has remained behind. Now his family has arrived in Holland, including his kid brother Charlie, who was only 10 in 1945, and Charlie's son, Michael.
Hi, David O'Keefe. How are you? Hi, Charlie.
We are thrilled to have somebody from the Milner family join us here.
And I'm quite thrilled to be here.
Charlie has no idea we have found his brother's helmet. Being so young at the time, we want to know what memories Charlie has of Clarence.
How did his death affect you?
Very much. He was my big brother, and we spent a lot of time together.
Do you think of him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a picture of him above my breakfast and dinner table. You look at pretty well every day.
We then take Charlie and his son Michael inside the museum. For Joel, he's been waiting a long time to meet someone from the Milner family.
Well, we'd like to introduce you to Joel Stopels. He's a local historian. Charlie Milner.
Hello.
And his son Mike. He is the brother of Clarence Milner.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to meet you here in Groningen.
Then Joel takes Charlie and Michael on a tour of his exhibit.
It was quite obvious that Joel was proud to show the work that he had done with his exhibit, and justifiably so. He was able to show them what life was like in Groningen for the Canadian soldier.
You see the uniform and also the Lee Enfield. This was a standard rifle used at the Canadian troops here in Groningen. Maybe your brother had the same weapon.
Now it's time to show them why they came to Holland.
For Joel, this is the moment he had waited for years.
To finally present the helmet to a Milner relative.
This belonged to your brother.
Wow.
Yeah. There it is, yeah. Isn't that something?
That's quite a thing, yeah.
To see Charlie hold Clarence's helmet after 70 years is very touching. But there's still one mystery we hope he can solve.
Is that his nickname, or why would they call him Red Milner?
Because he had red hair, mainly, and then all the family had red hair. They all used to call him Red in school days and stuff.
What's it like to have this in your hands now, all these years later?
It kind of gets you, eh, to think that it's been on him.
What's it like for you?
It's emotional. Say, I never got to meet the man.
Yeah.
Always very proud of him for what he did. We all have a better life because of brave soldiers like Clarence. Where was it found?
And that's the next location where we're going to.
Oh, wow.
It's time to take them to the place where Clarence was killed.
Thank you.
The reason we've brought you to this particular location is because this was the main route of advance for your brother when his regiment came into Groningen.
And we have a picture. You can see this picture was taken for this house, maybe by a civilian. And here lies Clarence Milner.
And although the evidence isn't 100% conclusive, we were able to get into the war diary, and it showed that indeed, when they came down this way and fighting on this road, they came under sniper fire. It also lists that 5 of the Royal Regiment soldiers were killed just along here. Is one of the 5 who lost his life on the street right here.
So right here behind you is the exact spot where he died.
Where he got hit, yeah.
Right here.
Right here.
Just makes it real. I mean, before it was, I knew my Uncle Clarence died in World War II. As a child on Remembrance Day, he was the one of my thoughts.
Then it was time to take the final journey to the Holton Cemetery where Clarence is buried.
Charles has never been to Holland, so this will be his first time visiting his brother's grave.
All these years, finally made it here.
That number, I could always remember that number. B117461. It stayed with me for years. Yeah.
The final resting place. You can almost feel him here.
But then they pulled out a photo album. Dave and I, through all of our research, never knew what Clarence Milner looked like.
That's the wavy red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie with his best buddy.
That was just before he got in.
So is this the last photo that was taken of you and your brother?
I would have to say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then Michael shows us the photo of Clarence.
This is the picture he looks at every day.
That hangs in Charlie's house.
Yeah.
He died way too young. Oh, yes.
Then there was a really poignant moment when both Charles and Michael decided that they were going to plant 3 Canadian flags at the grave. One would stay here. The 2 others would be taken back to Canada for the family.
How does it feel, Dad?
Yeah, it feels good to be here after all these years. Every time you look at something with his picture, because he was always smiling anyway. Always smiled, yeah.
The story of Clarence Red Milner represents the ultimate sacrifice that Canadian soldiers made near the end of the war to liberate a country that 70 years later has never forgotten. This time on War Junk, we investigate one of the most iconic World War I battlefields in Europe, Vimy Ridge. First, we take to the sky.
You can see the distinct zigzag pattern of a German trench.
Then we go underground where no film crew has gone before.
It is a completely unsanitized environment.
It pushes our team to the limit.
I'm trying my best to shoot, keep my balance. You can't stand up.
And we look to solve mysteries etched in the walls around Vimy. Can we connect the past to the present?
They took the time to leave what could have been their last mark.
This is War Junk, Vimy Ridge.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
With our team, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefield.
Some big, some small.
All with a story to tell
and a mystery or two to solve along the way.
For an iconic story like Vimy Ridge, we decided that we wanted to see Vimy first from the air.
Oh, my Lord.
Whoa.
This is the way to see Vimy Ridge. I have chills. I have literally chills flying over it right now.
You can understand when you fly over the ridge just how important this was. It's the most dominating feature in the entire area, and you'd understand why the Germans would fight so hard to keep it and why it cost so much in blood for the Allies to take it. The Battle of Vimy Ridge is considered one of Canada's greatest military triumphs during the First World War. A ferocious battle, it was fought over 4 days between April 9th and 12th of 1917. The fight for the ridge was just one sector of the Allied attack around the French town of Arras. Vimy Ridge was the northernmost point of the Allied push into German lines, and it was the first time that all 4 of Canada's divisions fought side by side in one battle.
Seeing Vimy from the air puts the entire battle into perspective. We have walked many World War I battlefields, but few have the scars of battle quite like Vimy Ridge.
Some parts of it look like it's never been touched since the battle.
Yeah, a lot of it hasn't. I mean, this land was given by the French as a gift to Canada for their sacrifice here. And as a result, it was turned almost instantly into a memorial.
Although Vimy Memorial Park represents only 10% of the actual 1917 battlefield, this is unique land, for it has changed very little over the last 100 years. From above, you can still see the pockmarks from the massive artillery barrages that preceded the attack and actually went in to support the infantry when they did attack.
That's the last German trench line. Wow. Right down there, you can see the distinct zigzag pattern of a German trench. As soon as the Canadians pass this, they continue to push on to the crest of the ridge. As soon as you reach that point, you know you had taken it.
The Canadian troops finally captured the top on April 12th, and the battle for Vimy Ridge came to an end, but with a heavy price.
The Canadian Memorial has 11,000 names on it.
Before we land, we take one last moment over the memorial.
Where it's positioned, it really is the ultimate sign of victory for the Canadians and the Allies in the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Seeing Vimy from the air was unbelievable, but that was only the beginning of our journey. It's an incredible opportunity for the team to come here and investigate Vimy Memorial Park and try to find the true essence of the battle through what's been left behind. We now have a meeting with a person who knows more about one key aspect of the Battle of Vimy Ridge than anyone else.
Wayne and I are meeting Philip Robinson.
Said he'd meet us at the visitor center?
Yeah, right here.
And Philip is a former lieutenant colonel in the Royal Engineers, and he's probably the foremost expert on the underground war at Vimy.
Well, David, nice to see you again.
It's no surprise that when we approached Philip in the visitor center parking lot,
Hello, Philip. Wayne, good to see you again.
That he already had his information spread out on a picnic table.
This plan here is just 1 kilometer sector of the tunneling area we have here at Vimy. And what we're looking at is a warren of tunnels. These are various German tunnels, and this is the British, subsequently Canadian side.
Here was just a 1 kilometer snippet of the entire 10-kilometer long Vimy sector, and it was absolutely honeycombed with mine shafts of all types.
What visitors see, and most people actually think about in terms of the Great War, is trenches. But actually, things went underground after the early stages in terms of dugouts and subway passages for people and so on. But also, there was, of course, a war fought underground along quite a lot of the front.
As Philip explains, the underground war was a major part of the battle and vastly complex. Some tunnels were dug as deep as 30 meters or 100 feet under Vimy Ridge. These fighting tunnels were sometimes used to set off explosives under enemy lines. The results of this subterranean war can still be seen on the surface today.
Once this is in place, it's almost impossible for the enemy miners to get through. So then they concentrated on the construction of subway systems.
The name subways was given to the tunnels dug about 8 meters or 27 feet underground. These were used to move men and munitions up to the front lines.
Up here we have the Goodman subway, and this was the longest of all. It goes back from here another kilometer. It was passage from the reserve lines area forward into the forward lines without observation by the enemy, relatively safe. These are about 8 meters below the ground, so pretty well proof from shell fire. What I'd like to do is take you to a place not normally visible to the public.
We're very excited to follow Philip into the restricted area of Vimy Memorial Park.
We're getting in to the off-limits area of Vimy Ridge. But imagine what this would have looked like during the battle.
Oh, yeah. Everything we're in right now would have been absolutely pulverized, would have been death and destruction.
Once in the restricted forest, Philip takes us down a small path.
I take it the area that we're on has been cleaned of munitions.
No, not at all. It's thick with munitions.
The forest is full of unexploded ordnance, but some of the war remnants safely pulled from the ground still lie scattered along the path.
You see some of it here.
Oh, look at these.
And these are cases from shrapnel shells.
Cases. So no explosives
the cases,
left.
no, there's all the explosives being taken away.
Walking further along the path, we're curious about where Philip is taking us and what he wants us to see.
We'll go up into this area here where, well, something I think will be of great interest to you.
Really, right down here.
Getting excited, Dave?
Yeah, I am.
Dave, where's he taking us?
I don't know, but it looks like some sort of hole. Oh, no, wait a second. I see something covered up down here. And now, in this little hollow, in this forest, we see a hatch. And of course, that could only mean one thing.
What we have is, in fact, the entrance to a shaft down into the Goodman subway.
Really?
That's right.
This is the Goodman subway.
You do the honors with the keys.
Whoa! Look at that.
Holy.
It's a bit of a way, isn't it?
It's about, well, it's 27 feet deep. It's about 8.5 meters. But this connects to the very deep fighting system, and it should be possible to get the film crew down there.
Really?
Into the deep fighting system.
Now, has anybody ever been down there to film that part before?
Never been filmed commercially, no.
Well, this is going to be great. Philip told us that we're going to go farther than anyone has ever been under Vimy Ridge, with the exception of his own team.
What we will uncover and what we will see, we have no idea.
After exploring Vimy Ridge from the air, the War Junk team has a rare opportunity to investigate Vimy below the surface.
Tunnel day.
Big time. Today is our first tunnel expedition, and this is phase 1 of what Wayne and I plan to do over the next couple of days.
Can't believe we're going to investigate the Goodman subway.
Yeah, amazing, eh? To think that we're going to be walking in the same footsteps as the men who attacked Vimy Ridge 100 years ago.
Hi.
How are you?
So, you're David?
Yes, I am. That's Wayne.
Wayne? Hi, Andy.
The expedition leader on the first phase is Andy Hawkins, who is a former British Army demolition specialist. So we were in pretty safe hands.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll go down to the head of the Goodman shaft. I'll give you a brief on the entire environment, the archaeological environment down there, and about the UXOs that are in there and all the rest of it, because it is a completely unsanitized environment.
UXOs are unexploded ordnance left behind from the war. This makes the trip more challenging, but we still have a clear objective.
There we are. All right, let's get set up.
We really want to see what is down there to actually give us a sense of what it was used for during the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Okay, so the boys are going to get rigged up now.
Game time.
Just be mindful of your environment.
Andy is part of the Duran Group, a UK-based tunneling team that has spent over 2 decades exploring the tunnels under Vimy Ridge.
If at any time you feel uncomfortable, just tell me and we'll come out, take a breather, go back in.
We've investigated other tunnel systems on other battlefields around the world, so we know that there's always a danger when you do go below ground. See you down there, Dave.
See you in a bit.
It's cool. It's really cool.
I'm down.
Walking into the same footsteps as the men from the Canadian Corps 100 years ago. There is no feeling like this. What we planned to do when we reached the bottom was start a reconnaissance down in the tunnel.
Okay, I'm in the skinny part now, when I can see it opening up.
During the battle, the Goodman subway was a full 1.2 kilometers long, enabling the fighting troops to get to the front lines underground in relative safety. The section that we are exploring today is only a few hundred meters. Much of the rest has collapsed over time. Immediately, we are transported back to the first day of the battle in April 1917.
If you can imagine a man in full uniform, rifle, weapon, helmet, all his kit, this is big enough for him to come through.
The remaining tunnel is in excellent condition, much as it would have been during the battle.
The Goodman subway was actually built based on the lessons learned from previous battles. It was difficult to get men across no man's land or even their own lines on the surface without exposing them to enemy artillery and having them killed or wounded. So the idea now was to create subways underneath, so in the heat of battle, they could be ushered up to the front without having to risk being wounded on the way up.
As we start our investigation, one of the first things we notice is the unexploded ordnance spread across the floor.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grenades here, I think.
They're rifle grenades.
They're rather unique to see. I guess we have to be very careful where we step.
Yeah, just stay off the grenades.
Try to.
As we carefully investigate the tunnel further, we're hoping to find evidence that will show these tunnels were more than just a means of shuffling men to the front lines.
What part of the tunnel are we getting into now?
Well, we're coming into what was one of the brigade headquarters.
So this wasn't just a transport corridor, but a vital part of the underground fight for Vimy Ridge. This is the brigade headquarters that was used during the battle. I mean, you can imagine what it was like in here with the commander barking orders left, right, and center, runners coming in, taking messages, and of course the radios chattering in the background. Oh my God, this is the center of the Vimy battle in this sector. As we move deeper into the Goodman subway, we find more evidence of the complexity of this tunnel system. Things like storage facilities, signals rooms, mortar pits, and we even discover an unusually large room cut deep into the rock.
What is this?
What we're standing in now was the main supply for water for the troops up at the front line.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is one just big water reservoir?
Yes.
It was really almost like an underground fortress, a replica of the trench works that you would have on the surface within the relative safety of 20 feet below ground.
Now, Dave and I are hoping to find artifacts that tell the personal stories of war. As we walk towards what would have been the front lines, we come across something extraordinary.
I just noticed I'm standing right here. And I just see it must be, what, 10 names here?
At least. Looks like Norton or Morton from the 52nd Battalion.
It's chilling to stand in the same spot that these young soldiers did nearly 100 years ago, signing their names into the wall of the tunnel.
Campbell, 5th Canadian Mounted Rifles, they were actually in this subway during the attack on April 9th.
And there's one down here, Dave, look.
Yeah, you can see Hardy from the 42nd Battalion, Black Watch again. And then it looks like RAAF, Roflab. And it looks like A Company, 116th Battalion Canadians, and it looks like in France.
Then a few meters down the tunnel,
Dave.
Yeah. Oh my God.
a veritable wall of remembrance.
Totally amazing.
These consisted of the names, sometimes the regiment numbers of the men who were down in this tunnel. You really felt as if you were walking with ghosts at that particular moment.
We know we have found a great story to investigate. The names on the walls of the Goodman subway.
That was an incredible experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Talk about stepping back to 1917. And then the names.
The names. I mean, there's just so many names. We documented as many as we could.
It'd be absolutely incredible now to reach out with the research team and see if we can find family members.
After a day of being underground at Vimy, I was actually relieved that we got a lead to go meet somebody just about 5 kilometers from the battlefield.
Wayne and I were to meet a woman by the name of Valerie, a Canadian expat who lives in the area, and we were told that she would be able to show us some artifacts related to the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Good morning.
Well, hello.
We were thinking that possibly she had a smaller artifact with a name or ID number on it.
During the First World War, this was actually used as a Red Cross hospital. And if you come a little bit further back, you can see, here you can make out the Red Cross.
What I didn't realize is that the artifact she was showing us was the wall in front of us.
I guess these things are starting to fade away with the sun, with time, and everything else?
The sun with time, with the weather. I mean, it's a beautiful day today, but this part of France is actually very cold and wet.
Look at this. What was really incredible was when she showed us the names that were etched on the walls. So this actually housed Canadian soldiers during the war.
Oh yes, of course. You had officers and men quartered in the fields around here, and in the fall of 1916, when they're preparing the attacks, this is in the area that they would have been in.
This is the area?
And of course, obviously, lots of men would have been coming to this hospital if they were wounded. You can make out some other names, for example.
Oh, yeah, look at this.
JC, this is 1918.
You know, with the amount of men that were through here, I mean, are there other areas like this?
Yes, there are. Is that interesting?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Okay.
On war junk shoots, we never know what's going to happen. While we were shooting with Valerie, all of a sudden this lady comes out and starts to tell us about the history of the place.
C'était vraiment un endroit très stratégique pour protéger les blessés.
Mais oui.
Voilà, qui arrivaient en masse.
Madame Derville has lived here all her life, and she is eager to tell us about the history of her chateau during the war.
So this dates from 1725.
Yeah.
And I guess the top part then has been rebuilt since the war, because that's what they were saying, that the roof was gone.
But then she wanted us to come inside and show us something very special.
She had mentioned that.
She pulls out these boxes of slides passed down from the family that once owned the estate.
These were done, I guess, during the war, and it's, oh my God, look at the photos. Oh, they're done on glass.
What even surprised me more was that there was 2 images on each glass slide, which means these were 3D images from World War I.
C'est très vivant. Ce sont des morts, malheureusement, ou des blessés, mais ça exprime exactement.
I mean, this looks like a French tank that's been knocked out in a trench not too far from here.
These were maybe some of the most amazing images I had ever seen, taken 100 years ago.
There are 6 boxes containing at least 30 photos in each box. So we're looking at almost 180 photos that probably haven't been seen since the end of the war. The challenge now is to go through all these photos to see if by chance we can find one that gives us a new image of Vimy Ridge.
But this will have to wait. Our next stop is just a few kilometers away, near the town of Souchez.
Now this is a spectacular remnant.
Yeah, this is a church from the 16th century.
Well, this is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the result of the fighting that took place to take all of the high ground in May of 1915. But what I want to show you is actually about the Canadians, and it's on the inside. The Canadians arrived here in the fall of 1916. They're in the back lines preparing for the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
By the time the Canadians arrived here, this place was already in ruins.
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're going back and forth doing raids and so on and so forth in the month of March. And at some point, they must have come here. Maybe it was a rest stop, maybe it was a field hospital, but they left their names.
For a cinematographer, the ruins of war can be quite beautiful to shoot. But seeing the names etched into the stone makes this place a much more personal type of memorial.
So, O.E. McMahon, the 54th Canadian Battalion from BC.
Yeah.
BC Keeping, PEI.
There were names from right across Canada.
So here we have somebody from Toronto named W.H. Page with his number.
Wow, this is great. The fascinating part here was that not only did you have unit names and the names of the soldiers, but in some cases you actually had their regimental numbers, which of course makes it a lot easier to trace their history. The mission is to go in and research these names, to find out who these men were, where they were from, and what happened to them.
Well, the research team gave us 3 good leads for the church.
Okay, what do we have?
Well, they're looking into W.H. Page from Toronto, Ian Bird, who was with the Princess Pats, and then a BC Keeping from PEI.
It would be wonderful to find one family to bring over here to connect with their World War I roots.
Today, we continue our investigation under Vimy Ridge.
Here we are.
We are going deep into the fighting tunnels, and because of how treacherous these tunnels are,
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm quite nervous about today.
we've decided that I will do this one on my own with a skeleton crew.
Hey, the boys.
When we arrive, we meet today's team leader from the Duran Group, Nick Pryor.
Ready for day 2?
Yeah.
He's one of the first people since the war to explore the deep fighting tunnels at Vimy Ridge.
We haven't been down there for 10 years to inspect some of those areas. We need to go down to see if conditions have changed.
Our objective today is to follow the Duran Group down into one of the deepest systems under Vimy Ridge. It's called the Laffoley system.
Our route will take us through the Goodman subway to the Laffoley tunnel system, then across to the Grange subway, over 1 kilometer underground. And along the way, a very important and risky mission.
We have a camouflage charge down there. We don't know what condition that's in.
A camouflage is an explosive charge designed to destroy an enemy tunnel with an underground blast.
The Duran Group 20 to 25 years ago came across
An unexploded camouflage charge
that was buried deep in the Laffoley system. Even though they took the detonator away back in the 90s, there's no telling how this charge has deteriorated over the last decade.
Can we actually get up fairly close to the charge?
I hopefully will be able to take you in there. Depends, it's really tight.
So to assess the integrity of the camouflage charge, you have to actually get up there.
There's no other way.
7, 8 stories below the ground. We're going to be coming up against an unexploded charge. The fact that we're going to be in spaces as narrow as 18 inches.
It's going to be a hell of a challenge.
Getting rigged up, I was probably the most nervous ever on any expedition on our show.
Good
Very
stuff.
confident. As I descended the ladder,
Okay, here we go.
wasn't like the day before. I really had to calm myself.
There we are.
While I'm down below, Philip has plans for David.
Right, well, what we'll do now, David, is I've got here a map in which the tunnels are plotted against the actual map of the forest, and we'll track where they're proceeding underground and beneath us.
We begin our investigation at the entrance to the Laffoley system.
We need to look out for the roof, see if there's been any major collapses, because this bit is unstable. So we're now at the top of the incline that leads down into the deep system. Actually, we have had a bit of a collapse since we were last in.
The way has to be cleared before we can proceed.
We had to scramble down a steep slope, like a water slide made of rocks, from basically 20 feet to 80 feet below ground in a very short period of time. If this was only the first 100 feet of our tunnel experience, how are we going to get through the rest of the day? Nick took us deeper into what is a fighting tunnel.
Bit of a low section.
The Laffoley fighting tunnels were constructed much differently than the subways above. Much more narrow, deeper under the ridge, running laterally along German lines, and sometimes dramatically changing levels.
Probably at a 50-degree angle.
50-degree angle, he thinks. Trying my best to shoot, keep my balance. You can't stand up. And it's just straight up.
They get into what was a higher level tunnel that started off in the woods back there, and then plunges down again and forks out in 2 directions.
Forks out in 2 directions.
We finally come to one end of the Laffoley tunnel system. It's shocking to think we would have only been a few feet from German lines on the other side of the wall.
It was a listening warfare, the men sitting down here, listening. No activity at all.
So they were just listening to see if the Germans were digging closer to the British lines.
So if they needed to do something to stop them, because the last thing they wanted was the Germans breaking in, finding the subways, knowing this big attack was being planned to bring men up underground.
We backtrack to the main tunnel system, moving laterally under no man's land.
Wayne, this is the best bit of rail line you can see intact in the whole system. So your little trolleys with the rubber wheels, they would be sitting, the rubber wheels, between these 2 pieces, on the main track timber there and running along on there quietly on the wood.
Most times when you think of mining, you think of metal tracks with metal wheels and these little trolleys being pushed back and forth. But this was World War I underground warfare.
It was quiet warfare.
I tried to put myself into the position of a soldier who was down in this tunnel system nearly 100 years ago. Everything had to be done at a quiet level. You couldn't carry on a conversation because any noise could alert the Germans, who may only be a few feet on the other side of the tunnel wall. Then we arrive at the area where the unexploded charge is located.
This was one of the most heavily mined sections of the tunnel system. In the autumn of 1916, the Germans were moving forward and tunneling, and the British tried to stop this activity. 28th of November 1916, we blew charged some 12,000 pounds. When you look at 172 war diary, in the early part of December, Germans 30 feet away, working. And then a few days later, Germans 25 feet away, still coming forward. Tunnel that we're going into, to where the camouflage charge is, because they knew the Germans were really close, and they were worried, really worried about a breakthrough.
As we approach the camouflage chamber, Nick calls a halt.
We're now going to call Andy forward, our explosive expert, just to get in that chamber and see if anything's happened since 10 years ago.
There is nothing for Nick and I to do but wait, unaware that Dave and Philip are just above us.
This mine would have been blown about November 1916. You're now standing absolutely above a camouflage chamber that the support team will probably be just about getting into
They'll
now.
just be reaching this now.
That's right.
So what's it like in there?
The air is thinner, but more than anything, it's claustrophobic going
This plays on my biggest fear. I try to put it out of my mind as Nick goes to see how Andy is doing.
What are you seeing? He's just inspecting the stack.
Guess so Andy's right up near the charge.
Have you done, Andy?
Okay, you can come on up if you want.
Wayne?
Yep.
Actually, if you come up, there is room to pass at this point.
Moving through the tunnel gives me the feeling like I'm a soldier in 1917, moving towards German lines.
It's very narrow, maybe about 2 feet right now. I still have no clue whether or not I'll get all the way in to see the explosives. It's just so narrow. Okay.
Okay, and how's it look?
The mine charge is looking good.
Good. You're talking like 100 years later.
Yeah.
Basically, it's sitting there the way it was when it was first put.
Yeah.
I'm excited here. Let's just crawl in.
I guess I'm at ground zero right now.
Well, ground zero of a kind, but remember the charge down there, which is about 800 pounds, about 350 kilos of explosive, is not designed to break surface. It's designed to wreck an enemy tunnel.
Although we're relatively safe, the danger is great for the guys below.
Oh, very much so.
There it is.
Wow. I don't know if I should touch it, but since they think it's safe, there should be probably 30 or so bags. This stuff has been sitting here since the Battle of Vimy Ridge in 1917, or even earlier.
This crude funnel.
Yeah.
So was the sound piece, the listening earphone, connected onto brass fitting, the 2-inch air hose. Coming right back here, we found a clip of 5 bullets. There's no other reason to have that there other than they were expecting a potential breakthrough.
Then something happened. This little tunnel started to kind of wear on me. The air was very thin, it got very warm, and that's when I knew.
It's okay.
That I had to get out of that tunnel. It takes me a while to regain my composure.
It was tough. That little cubbyhole was so tight and so small. I just had a panic attack. I don't know how these guys did it during the war, to be down here all of this time and in those tight, confined spaces.
We have only made it a third of the way through the tunnel system, and the decision is made to get to the grain subway as soon as possible.
Oh, Wayne, I'm sorry. For a finish, we get the worst of it.
Better at the end. My legs are burning. My back is sore.
You'll be glad. The end is nigh.
Good. We make it?
Well done. With some feet. This is bringing us into the Grange.
You did it.
Oh, hey, Dave.
You did it. Welcome back.
That was the toughest thing I think I've ever shot. It was just tough. I mean, physically tough. And it just goes to show how hardy these men were.
It's a fantastic piece of engineering when you think it's all done by hand.
Navigating this system today, 100 years after the battle, is hard enough. But I feel for the men who fought and lived and died down there.
Well, Dave, this is an incredible day.
Oh yeah, it's amazing when you think about it. We've got 2 families coming all the way from Canada to walk the hallowed ground here at Vimy.
But first, we need to stop back at Madame Derville's chateau to have a closer look at those 3D slides.
Comment allez-vous?
David and I wanted to spend the time to go through every photo in her collection.
Oh, merci.
Our objective was to find anything to do with the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
This was a collection from the entire war. We were finding photos from various different battlefields, from Verdun to the Somme. We probably went through half the collection, and we're not really feeling confident we would find something different. But then, I picked up one specific slide.
Dave.
Yeah?
Look at this one.
God, it's a Vimy Memorial.
Vimy Memorial in 3D.
Get a better view.
Yeah, it could have been when it was being built. No, I think this is a 3D image from the day it opened.
The image showed the post-war unveiling of the Vimy Memorial.
So just look online to see if this actual photo
I will.
Has been posted.
That definitely is one rare artifact.
We did it.
We
That's
did.
what we wanted to do. We wanted to find a new image of Vimy. Surprisingly, it's not the battle, but the next best thing.
Now it's time to meet a family who has traveled from Canada all the way to Vimy Ridge.
The first person we met is Sandy Stewart, the grandson of Ben Keeping. He's the soldier who etched his name into the wall of the old church.
You must be Sandy.
Yes, you must be David.
Yes, I am, and this is Wayne.
Hi, Sandy. How are you? Pleasure. I'm so glad you could come over.
Well, it's great to be here.
We didn't know what Sandy knew about Ben Keeping's war experiences.
My grandfather died 7 years before I was born, so I never really had a chance to talk about his war experience, but I know he was a medical student at McGill when the war broke out, and he joined up with the Canadian General Hospital unit from McGill. And then in March of 1917, according to the records, he asked to be transferred to an artillery unit, the number 2 siege battery.
And what was the reason that he wanted to go to the number 2?
He had 3 other brothers who had also signed up, and he actually had a brother who was with the number 2, so possibly that's why.
So we have found something of your grandfather's.
But the thing is, it's a few kilometers from here, so we have to make a bit of a journey.
Okay.
You ready?
Well, I've come this far. Let's go.
All right. Sandy really had no clue what was in store for him, particularly when we stopped at the old church and we introduced him to Valerie.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Nice to meet you.
This is Sandy Stewart.
It's nice to meet you.
Valerie, of course, had helped us tremendously with our research, and we felt it was important that these two meet.
That became a ruin in May of 1915 following the French attacks on Notre-Dame de Lorette. What's interesting for us as Canadians is that Canadians also passed through here during the attack on Vimy Ridge, and so if you'll follow me, I'll show you what I'm talking about.
So when you just stand here, you kind of look around and maybe you don't notice anything right away. But then when you look over here, oh yes, you see names of soldiers.
Yeah.
Somebody from Ottawa, somebody from the Princess Pat's.
I think a lot of the families who come here think we're going to give them an artifact or something tangible that they can take home with them.
The fact that this is a name etched in the wall, I really didn't know how he was going to react. But then, over here, Sandy, this is why we brought you here.
Oh, wow.
He stood right here where you're standing now.
98 years ago?
Yeah.
I can't believe this. I mean, when he was here, he could never have thought that a grandson he would never meet would be here almost 100 years later.
Although this was a grandfather that he never met, there was an immediate connection.
I'll have to go home and tell my mother.
There's hundreds and hundreds of names of Canadian soldiers who've etched their names into the walls around Vimy Ridge. And your grandfather is one of them.
It's amazing.
Guess you could say you're literally walking in his footsteps right now.
I guess I am.
But then we had more information to share with Sandy that would actually shed more light on his grandfather. Well, we looked at his war diaries.
Yes.
And we think we know the possible date and when he did this.
The 2nd Siege Battery was indeed engaged in the assault on Vimy Ridge. His unit moved back from the ridge to the Souchez area on the 13th, the day after the battle.
The war diary also states that the 2nd Siege Battery left the town on April 25th. So there's a 2-week period where Ben Keeping was in the town of Souchez. This is when he etched his name into the wall of that old church.
Wondering what it was like for him to be here, what he was thinking about, whether, you know, he knew when the next battle would be.
At that moment, Sandy's wife Heather joins him, and both Wayne and I realize just how important this research is to the family.
You know, it's kind of funny, I never really knew my grandfather because he died before I was born. It sort of creates feelings that I never knew I had.
We have one last story to tell here on Vimy Ridge, and it will take us back into the underground war.
Out of 50+ names that we documented on the walls of the Goodman Tunnel, we found one family that has now come over to France. We're waiting for the arrival of Robert Rafflab.
He's the son of George Rafflab, whose name we found down in the tunnel.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Now, he's arrived here with his second cousin, Jacqueline, and they have no clue what we have in store for you.
Nice to meet you.
And this is Wayne.
Hi there, how are you?
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Vimy Ridge.
Robert was very quick to tell us that he and his father really didn't talk much about the war. And in the limited conversations they did have, he never told them that he was actually here at Vimy.
Basically, Dad never mentioned hardly anything about the war to us as kids, no. And most of what I found out about his involvement was from my uncles, his brothers.
We have intentionally kept them in the dark and have told them nothing about what they will experience.
Was there something you wanted to show us about that cabin?
No, not at all. And don't get freaked.
As we approached the entrance to the Goodman subway, you could see that they were starting to get pretty nervous.
We want to take you under Vimy Ridge and show you something that proves that George was here in 1917.
Ready to go back 100 years in your family history?
Sure. Got to go underground to do it.
You got it.
Excellent.
All right, let's get ready.
Okay.
We had 2 surprises for him. One was, of course, the signature on the wall below.
Just make sure you have good footing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just go real slow.
But also a new set of research that sheds some light on his father's story at Vimy.
You know, Robert's the first son of a World War I vet ever to be in this tunnel.
On April 9th, 1917, when the attack was about to start, they started filtering soldiers down in here. And what we're doing is we're heading towards the frontline trenches.
So you can start to see things like, look at this right here. See other names here, look. They were so intrigued.
Ross or a host?
They started reading out the names and touching the wall.
D. Ross?
They were really leaving their last marks, if you will,
Yeah.
before they went into the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Here's actual writing.
Yeah. So this is an incredible legacy left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another little grouping of names here.
Herbie?
Yeah.
Hardy?
Oh, I see.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's your father's signature.
116 Battalion, is that it?
You got it.
Yeah.
I really didn't know whether or not Robert or Jacqueline would have any kind of emotional connection to the signature.
My signature for a surname is almost identical.
I mean, Robert didn't even know his father was in Vimy.
How does it feel to be standing where he was 100 years ago?
The thing is, of all the relatives, I'm the only one. We're good.
But now it was time for the second surprise. The information that we uncovered about his father's war experience that he didn't know.
They were in a follow-up battalion that was pushing up ahead in no man's land. And he was fighting pretty much right above where we are right now.
I think he probably would have come through these tunnels to access the trenches that he was working in.
Yeah.
If your father was here, what would you tell him?
Probably that I now appreciate what he did. I'm more proud of him now. I thought you were going to show me a belt or a medal.
I guess you could say in many ways it's a lot better than a belt or a medal, because your dad did that with his own hands.
It's been a gratifying experience to connect these families with remnants of the past. Though the battle ended nearly 100 years ago, through these artifacts, the story of Vimy Ridge lives on.
This time on War Junk, we're in Hong Kong, a sprawling metropolis world-renowned for its dazzling skyline. We're here to search the battlefields in and around this great city. December 1941, a bloody battle rages in Hong Kong. Canadian and British troops face an advancing Japanese juggernaut. It ends in a shocking defeat for the Allies 3 weeks later. We're investigating the war junk left behind to see if we can solve a few mysteries about the battle. Why did one of the largest and most spectacular Allied fortresses fall in a matter of hours?
And so once they get by the guns, they get into the tunnels.
What dangers lurk beyond the skyscrapers of Hong Kong?
If this thing goes up?
About a 10-meter kill radius.
And can a little piece of war junk bring a father and son together after 70 years?
This is a mystery that needs to be solved.
I'm Professor David O'Keefe.
And I'm history buff and filmmaker Wayne Abbott.
Together, we travel the globe searching for war junk.
Remnants, artifacts, anything left over on the battlefields.
Some big, some small.
All with a story to tell.
And a mystery or two to solve along the way.
So Dave, first time in Hong Kong.
Yep.
What's our day one tour agenda?
Well, today we're going to go up to the Sherman Redoubt.
Redoubt?
Redoubt. It's a fortress. And in this particular case, it was built into the side of the mountain. And this is what defended Hong Kong against the Japanese invasion.
The Japanese invasion came fast and furious just after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Strategically, Hong Kong had a major port, and the Japanese desperately wanted it. At this time, the city was much smaller and a quieter place. The Allies had a force of nearly 15,000 troops from the British Commonwealth, including the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifles of Canada. The Shingmen Redoubt, this fortress buried in the mountain, was expected to hold out for weeks, if not months. But
it fell in 5 hours.
5 hours, that's all?
Once it fell, all of Hong Kong's fate was pretty much sealed.
What do we expect?
I've made arrangements for us to meet a relic hunter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool because it's a labyrinth of tunnels and of bunkers and of pillboxes. A most amazing place.
Well, that's our type of war junk.
You got it.
the Shingmen Redoubt was part of a 15-kilometer-long Allied defensive position, oddly called the Gin Drinkers Line. Named after the bay that existed nearby, it was drained after the Second World War and now houses a small city. The Shingmen Redoubt was the heart of this line and the focus of our investigation.
I think we are here.
Looks like it.
We got a full day planned here.
We can't see this trail on the map, so what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to follow the contour lines as we go up and see if we can pick up any signs of where the redoubt starts.
The hell's that?
Monkeys seem to be a little uptight today. And then jump into the...
Holy jeez. Where is that?
It's a monkey mugging. What's going on up there? I don't know, this is eerie. This is really eerie.
We haven't even got to the trailhead.
So basically, if we follow this map and follow the contours of the land, we can actually pop into the tunnels and then follow them along to our objective.
You're first.
All right, let's do it.
Despite the monkeys' warning cries, we were determined to explore the tunnels of the fortress. So we began our steep climb.
Staircase from hill.
Met a few locals along the way.
Hello. Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
And it didn't take long before we located a path.
Drainage. Now, you certainly wouldn't be building this to drain a mountainside unless there's some sort of fortification or some sort of structure up here. I'm going this way. Watch it.
Means I gotta follow.
Where are you?
I'm coming.
Yeah, you gotta watch it though.
On the night of December 9th, the Japanese attacked the Gin Drinkers Line very close to where we are now. They came across the valley from the north and under the cloak of darkness breached the fortress. Very quickly, they took control. We wanted to get into the tunnels to see if we could find evidence as to why.
We got something down here. This looks like it's been hit quite hard. I don't think that's erosion.
So mounted the camera up, got everything rigged up, got the lights on. Just that first dip down into the tunnel was amazing. Here goes nothing. Oh. Wow.
What do you see?
I can't even describe it. It's like absolutely perfect.
Look at the size of this thing now.
And how tall are you?
Well, I'm about 6'4", 6'5". I can actually stand up on this. Definitely battle damage. This has been pounded. It's really amazing though. The rest of the walls are intact. That's the only crack that's in here, with the exception of this being gone. Even with erosion 70 years later, this thing is still hanging together. What do we have down here? I think it's a junction.
Dave and I were like two kids in a candy store, because this is single-handedly one of the greatest pieces of war junk that we've ever seen. Piccadilly to Charing Cross. There was a beauty to it, even though it's a ruin. It was like I felt like I was on a movie set.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, we have a choice.
This is cool. So these are London streets.
I think it was the Middlesex Regiment that was here, and they were London boys. And to make it easier to get around, they decided they were going to use hometown names. So in the heat of battle, they wouldn't really have to worry. They could run off towards Regent, they could run off towards Shaftesbury, and know where they were.
This underground fortress, built between 1936 and 1938, is a unique and complex structure. The tunnels weave through and along the mountainside, and exit at 5 pillboxes. These were the key to protecting the redoubt, but also keeping the gin drinkers' line intact.
What pillbox is this?
Well, this is 401, or what's left of it. When we arrived at the pillbox, I mean, it was completely destroyed with the exception of the walls that were still standing. Look at the view.
That's amazing.
This is why it was here. It commanded everything coming up that valley.
I'm gonna get across here.
And, you know, jumping down inside, you walk around and you try to imagine what it was like to be there right in the heat of battle. Wow, look at this. Look how tight it would have been to be down here. This, I guess, would have been the entry. And then you would have had your loophole here. And probably there was something to stand up on so you could fire out. But this whole thing has been blasted clear.
Now, was this close to the Japanese advance here?
But from my understanding, they came up farther to the west. And it's hard to tell now with this overgrowth whether they would have been able to see them or not.
Dave's the history guy. It was great as we continued through the tunnels, he was able to find and pinpoint some of the strengths and weaknesses of the redoubt.
This is actually quite big for a passageway, which actually is kind of smart because in the middle of battle, you'd have soldiers running to and fro everywhere. And we're sort of like on the feet of a spider here, the legs. And that the redoubt has been kind of, you know, superimposed onto the mountain. I'm starting to see a weakness here. These fire trenches had to be manned because if they're not, or if they fall to the Japanese, these are the perfect entry points to get in. This could be a critical flaw in the whole thing.
As seen from above, these fire trenches are scattered throughout the fortress, suggesting a very open concept to the design. Adding to this, we also came across a series of unusual features.
Well, this is a ventilation shaft for part of the redoubt, and from my understanding, these are the type of entryways that the Japanese used to compromise the redoubt. They were able to get up here in the night, pop into these, and they were able to take the British defenders from behind.
Well, isn't there a grate?
No, there's no grate. There's nothing on here. Now, I have no clue whether there was one during the war or not, but I mean, this is also pretty big.
This seems to be the Achilles heel of the fortress, and there was only one thing left for us to do.
We wanted to test the vent system. Who is the guinea pig? Me. Because I think I'm at least a third bigger than, say, a 1940s Japanese soldier.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Okay, so let's see if I can get down here. And I have no kit on, but let's just see.
Oh.
Sorry, man.
No, you're bringing the Shingun down on me, man.
There we go.
No, you're going the wrong way.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. No, let it go. Okay, let it go. Good.
Coming up on War Junk.
Hello.
Our hunt in Hong Kong continues. And can a tiny piece of war junk help bring a father and son together after 70 years?
Having located air vents in the fortress and believing they were a weak point in the design, we decided to run a little test.
So let's see if I can get down here. And I have no kit on, but let's just see.
Oh.
Sorry, man.
No, you're bringing the Shingun down on me, man. No, you're going the wrong way.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, no, you gotta get up.
I got it. Just let it go. I got it.
Okay, you got it? Okay,
I'm good.
let it go.
I'm good.
Good. Bring it down.
Successful. A little bit awkward, huh?
Yeah, really.
But, you know, that is huge. I mean, it was fun, but, you know, it's sobering to think that 70 years ago, no, most likely a Japanese soldier did do that.
Yeah, got in here and then just completely cleaned it out.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Just crazy how big they are.
Even I could have got through that vent, but I would have crushed you.
Let's go, man.
All right.
Adventure continues.
Though we were having a great time investigating the tunnels, our objective was the observation post, the highest point in the fortress. It's here we plan to meet Craig, a relic hunter and local historian.
Okay, this looks like what's left of the OP up here. Hear that? He must be over here. Craig?
Yeah.
Craig Mitchell.
Yeah, you must be Dave.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good. Hi, Dave
welcome
O'Keefe.
Welcome to Hong Kong. How are you
Thanks
doing?
a lot. That's Wayne Abbott.
Hi, Wayne. How you doing?
Good, man.
Very nice to meet you.
So, started without us.
I had to. I'm not going to sit up here fully armed and not get out and have a little dig around.
So this is the OP we're on, the observation post.
Yes, we're standing pretty much right on top of it right now. The entrance is just down over here with views looking out more or less all the way around over here.
Okay. You know, as we were coming through the tunnels, there were a lot of questions that were going through our minds, particularly the tunnel ventilation systems, the Japanese dispositions, the pillboxes themselves.
I think there were a number of elements that sort of came together to contribute the loss of this being so fast. First of all, the topography of the ground over here, which is where the Japanese came from. There's a lot of hills, there's a lot of valleys, and it's really easy to get lost in there, to be not seen from this location here.
Dead ground is what
That's
they call
right, that's right. The Japanese knew about it, and they took advantage of it, so they came all the way in here without being spotted.
But what about the pillboxes now? Because when we got down there, we saw one that was just absolutely shattered. But were those pillboxes able to cover the whole territory?
They were able to cover, but the Japanese got into our lines before we realized that they were there. So by the time we knew they were more or less on top of us or coming into the side. So our guns were not pointing in the right direction. They were more or less behind us and on top of us when they attacked.
This is why the Shingmun fell so quickly. The Japanese got to the fortress so easily that they could use the vent shafts and fire trench openings as a way to breach the tunnels. The redoubt was doomed because of this design flaw. But there was one other key reason.
On the day of the attack, there was less than 50 Royal Scots were manning this area here.
I mean, the whole area, all the tunnels we've come through, all of the observation posts,
the observation posts, everything. So there was less than 50 men in this position.
So thoroughly undermanned then?
That's right. Lastly, I think complacency. I just don't think the British thought the Japanese would choose what we thought was the strongest part of our line to be their first point of attack. So I think they just caught us on the hop. We just didn't expect them to be so quick to get to this point and know so much about it so that they could infiltrate so quickly.
And so once they get by the guns, they get into the tunnels, game over.
That's right, we're fighting a losing battle.
So the redoubt, though structurally sound, had too many design flaws. From my point of view, without sufficient manpower, there was no way to hold back the weight of the Japanese onslaught. But 70 years later, the Shingmun Redoubt is still an incredible piece of war junk to explore.
I don't think it's much further up.
Now it's time to do a little digging with Craig.
So hopefully once we get to the top, we might find some Japanese artifacts. What we do know is that once the Royal Scots lost the position just below us, they retreated back to this hill right behind me over here, which is called Golden Hill. Once they did that, the Japanese would have come straight up here, and they would have positioned themselves up on this hill, looking straight at them. So I suspect that if we look around over here, there should be some sort of slit trenches or at least some sort of evidence of excavation getting done. So if you keep your eyes peeled, there might be something around here.
Yeah, this is great. He just burrows in there, right?
Here we go. Here's what looks to be another slit trench from about here down to about there, about 1.5 meters, 2 meters or something.
That makes sense.
I think that's just a big old can.
I felt like a kid, if you will, watching Craig do this. And of course, every time there was a hit and a beep, I was all excited. Anything?
No, not much here, I'm afraid, mate.
But unfortunately, we didn't come away with anything today. I mean, have you been able to, you know, get yourself a collection of stuff over the years?
Yeah, over the last few years, I've managed to accumulate quite an impressive collection, actually.
Wow.
I would love to show you.
Well, that'd be great. I mean, we get a chance to actually get over and see some real war junk, pick it up.
In your hands, you can have a feel for it if you like.
Remember the crazed monkeys we met in the morning? They came back with a vengeance and a serious hunger.
I was coming up with everything, all the crew lunch and everything else, and I was swarmed by monkeys.
And I was using the camera as my defensive weapon. All I could hear is this man screaming. I think for a war junk scene, it might be the best one we shot.
Yeah, when monkeys attack. So 70 years after the battle, you're still picking things like this off the battlefield.
Coming up, Craig shows us his collection and sets us on a journey where a little piece of war junk may give us the biggest story. and we go hunting for a cache of lost weapons where other deadly things may be buried.
Is that a shell or a rock?
I don't know, mate. I don't know just yet. Let's just take it a little bit easy.
We're going to meet Craig Mitchell. Ironically, he works at the cricket club, which was the site of one of the biggest battles on the whole island.
He never helps with the gear.
Great, this is absolutely gorgeous, this place.
It's lovely now, but I don't think you would have wanted to be here about 70 years ago.
Eh? This was actually the site of one of the fiercest battles?
This particular location now is pretty much the epicenter of the fiercest fighting for the Battle of Hong Kong. Every which direction from where we're standing now, hundreds of men lost their lives in the space of 48 hours.
After the Shingmen Redoubt fell, the Allies retreated to these hills on Hong Kong Island. On December 18, 1941, Japanese forces crossed the harbor to the island. The battle in the Wong Nai Chung Gap raged furiously for 2 days near the present-day cricket club.
The Japanese came in. They came up over these mountains, and then they ended up taking on the Canadian and British positions that were on this side.
That's right. Where we are now is right in the very center of Hong Kong Island. So this was a very strategic position.
So in other words, if we're looking for war junk, these are the two areas that are probably the best place in all of Hong Kong?
This was where the heaviest fighting took place, so yes, you will find a lot of stuff within 500 meters from where we're standing. We've done quite a few areas of sort of extensive searching. We found a few sort of interesting items.
Wow, now this is what war junk's about. Look at this piece. Oh my God. Is this what, a 75 millimeter shell?
That's right, 75 millimeter mountain gun, Japanese.
When I saw his collection for the first time, it was quite apparent he'd been out in the field doing a lot of work. Now, he's only been doing this for a couple of years, but he's come away with some really amazing stuff. Now, this is something that caught my eye as well when I came in. Now, is this a Japanese or a
No, this is actually, that's actually an Allied one, yeah.
Allied bayonet. And where did you find this?
Less than 500 meters that direction.
So this took part, all this stuff was found based on the battle here?
Within a kilometer of where we're standing from now. If you like that one, I've got something else I want to show you over here. This is quite special. That is actually a Japanese Type 38 rifle, which took a 6.5 millimeter slug.
Jeez, look at this. So all the wood is gone, and this is the only thing that's left from it.
So when did you find that?
Not so long ago, actually. About 2 months ago, I found this. And the reason it looks like this is that it's halfway through getting renovated right now.
So 70 years after the battle, you're still picking things like this off the battlefield?
I'm very lucky to have found that one, yeah.
Looking at all the war junk on the table was absolutely amazing. And of course, holding the rifle and the bayonet was fantastic. But it's sometimes the little things that really get your attention. Now this, of all the things you have here, this kind of caught my eye because I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. It looks like it's an M, and then I think that's a C, am I right?
That's right, yes. It's been broken in half and it's a little bit bent, so...
What was it?
I believe it is half of a Royal Army Medical Corps shoulder flash.
Royal Army Medical Corps?
I believe it came across the top there. I found it not so far away,
Where?
just over there, just by where that petrol station is, just over there, not too far away.
So what do you know about it so far?
I've narrowed it down through a little bit of research to maybe about 5 or 6 individuals who I think it could have come from.
Well, that would make sense because there weren't a lot of Royal Army Medical Corps.
There would have only been a handful in this particular location.
Wow. 70 years later, this is pulled from the ground. So if you've narrowed this down to 5, you haven't been able to go any farther with the research?
That's as far as I've got so far.
Now, this is what war junk's all about. This is a mystery that needs to be solved. So with your permission, we're going to take some photographs of this, and we're going to send it back to our research team, and then let's see if we can actually take this little piece of war junk and put a face or a name to this.
Anything you could uncover on that would be wonderful.
All right, that's what we're going to do now.
Be wonderful.
Fantastic.
I mean, what's the likelihood, do you think, that we can tie this to somebody?
I'm not really sure. If we can narrow this down somehow and put this little shoulder flash to a name, then we have got one of the biggest pieces of war junk, despite the fact that it's tiny in size. Craig is taking us relic hunting today. So exactly where is it we're going today?
We're actually going to go to this mountain here, just on my right-hand side.
You know, we've been on battlefields before, but when we were in the car, he threw something at me that was a complete game changer.
It's the furthest west that the Japanese managed to push. On the very top of that tiny little summit, there are 150, mostly Canadian grenadiers, but there was a mixture of other sort of smaller groups of soldiers up there defending. And they spent 3 days surrounded by the Japanese. But before they came down, they buried all of their weapons.
All of their weapons?
All of their weapons.
So what are we looking? What are we looking at? Rifles?
We're looking for Vickers machine guns. We're looking for a few Bren machine guns. We're looking for possibly some 45 handguns, some Colt 45s, really? Smith & Wesson 38s.
Anything and everything that the company was using at the time.
If it was dangerous and could be used to hurt your own colleagues, they didn't bring it down.
Okay, so for 70 years, this cache of weapons has been sitting up there untouched.
Untouched.
And no one's found it at all.
No one's found it yet.
So you think there is like 150 weapons like buried up there that nobody's found?
Well, I believe the reports that they buried them before they came down to the Japanese, and in 70 years I have not heard of a single person to come across them yet, and I don't think there are that many people out, first of all, knowing about the story, but second of all, that have the means to go out and search for them.
Lock and load, rock and roll, let's go.
Coming up, we're hot on the hunt for that cache of weapons.
Hello.
That's a pretty big piece of metal, mate.
And the shoulder flash story heats up.
And the interesting part is he narrows down our choices to 3 men who were with him. This is big. This is huge. Lock and load, rock and roll, let's go. Yeah, today we're going relic hunting with Craig Mitchell. The place is called Bennett's Hill.
Bennett's Hill is on the southern part of Hong Kong Island. Here, Canadian and British troops made their final stand prior to surrendering on Christmas Day, 1941. Reports say that the soldiers buried a cache of 150 weapons on this hill in an effort to keep them out of Japanese hands. To date, no one has found them.
What's this say? Warning, the footpath ahead is treacherous. Oh, we are going through the jungle.
Snagged on everything.
Gotta get down low here.
This isn't your typical hiking trail, and Craig forgot to warn us about the gnarly terrain.
You okay?
Oh, I'm doing great.
I don't even know how you're getting through here.
Pack mules.
Since this isn't a well-worn path, we have to be aware of other dangers like leftover landmines, shells, and grenades from the war. So the further we go and the more remote we get, we have to watch our step.
Is that Bennett's Hill in front of us?
That's it. Right, just there where it starts to sort of just go up to the left there. That's where we're going to search.
So I didn't think it would be so thick.
No, I didn't either.
First area here, I think we'll try and search here. There's a couple of big rocks over here which would have been good shelter back in the day. Now, because we're up in the middle of nowhere, we're going to leave it on all metals because pretty much anything that's metal up here
is suspicious.
Should be.
Yeah.
The one that we need to avoid and one that's pretty dangerous is on the very far left. If it comes up with an iron signal, that could be an artillery shell or a grenade, or it could be anything, but those are the ones we need to worry about. Okay. Don't go crashing in with the spade just yet. All right, let's get hunting.
The use of metal detectors in Hong Kong is permitted. For Craig, this is a labor of love, and one day he expects his collection to be put into a museum. Needless to say, adding this cache of rifles today would be an incredible addition.
Hello.
Have you got something down there?
Yeah, take a look at this.
Wow, let's have a look what you got.
Look at this, 2 of them, eh?
Well, you got a 303 there.
Looks like both a 303, right?
Just on top of the...
Yeah, look at this, just hanging out on the ground. I mean, it makes sense when you've got rock surface and everything here.
And their rifle.
Look at that, that's so cool.
How do you know they're rifle as opposed to...
From the pin. That
from the pin, yeah.
That tiny little pin there's a rifle one. A Bren would have a much deeper sort of a rectangle square.
Rectangle,
yeah, to it. Wow. And if we, very carefully, if we're lucky enough to get a little bit of a head stamp, we might be able to try and narrow down where this came from. We can tell from the head stamp on here that these were most likely not from the Canadians, but probably from either the Royal Scots were in this area or Dockyard Defence Unit as well. These were made in the UK.
From the head stamp, you can tell exactly where and when the shell was made. On this one, the RL stands for Royal Laboratories, which was located outside of London. It was made in 1933 and is a Mark VII type cartridge.
Either way, these are, these little pieces of war junk are basically, souvenirs from Christmas Day.
Lying right there on the surface, you know?
Yeah, all these years later.
Good start, mate. First 5 minutes.
It's our first piece.
The first piece of war junk, yeah, there it is.
The team pushed on through this gnarly brush. It was amazing how much we found.
Okay, well, that's a solid hit. Second, it is.
Okay.
It's in here. There it is.
Oh, there it is.
That's it right in there.
Yeah, look at it.
Another 303 shell just there. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Look.
Where?
Here it is.
Well, that's
45
tiny.
cal.
Oh, that's a 4-shot pistol.
It could either be a pistol,
or a
but
Thompson submachine gun.
I'm guessing it's a Thompson. Another 303. This is interesting. This one's from a Brenno. DAQ, which is Dominion Arsenal of Quebec, 1940.
And that's from a Bren gun.
From a Bren gun.
We got our first piece of Canadian war junk.
Shell after shell after shell, it's one find after another. And all I kept thinking was, when are we going to hit the cache?
Sounds a pretty big piece of metal, mate. Okay, I think it's this. That feels like metal.
Right down there.
Right there?
Coming up, have we uncovered the cache of weapons or something more ominous?
Feels like metal to me.
Really? Right here?
There.
Right there?
Is that they were taken over to that hill just over there.
And we get closer to solving the mystery of the shoulder flash.
Okay, that's not just interesting, lad. That seals it.
Hey, hold on, guys. Davey.
Yeah?
Just got an email in.
So as we're working on the top of the hill, an email comes in from our research team.
Good news from our research team, okay?
Are you serious, yeah?
Yeah.
Apparently, they have come across something that may reveal more about the shoulder flash that Craig discovered. Hey team, good news. Possibly narrowed down RMAC personnel in Wang Nai Chung Gap. Only a few names. Has Craig heard of a Captain Barkley?
Yes, I think he was the senior officer of that area.
Okay, it says we are waiting for a report to be sent from the National Archives in London. We'll be back to you soon.
How's that?
Well, that's interesting. It sounds like we've got something here.
That seems a positive lead to me.
All right.
Good work.
Well, so far, let's see if it matches up to Barkley. Hello.
For the next few hours, it was like ping, 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 shell after shell after shell.
What's really unique about this was the variety of shells we were picking up. So you know that this was the company position up here. So there's a good chance that that cache is somewhere in this area. As I'm moving closer to where Craig's position was, I realize he's up to almost waist deep in a hole. The problem was, I was expecting to see dirt and rocks. He's throwing out cans. Well, there's something there.
And it looks like it's some sort of a gun pit here, probably about sort of 2 or 3 meters wide by about 2 meters thick. This is exactly what we should be looking for. I mean, if you've already dug one of these out and you need to bury something, you would just put your stuff at the bottom of it and then just backfill it in. So let's see what we can find.
And here he is again, digging and digging and digging. He's removing rocks, he's removing roots.
It looks like we've taken away the cans.
So there's still something down here then?
It appears that way.
The detector is giving off this incredible sound, unlike anything I've heard so far.
It's big.
It's big.
Watching Craig dig, I mean, it was like he was possessed.
I think it's in here. I think I felt it.
It's in there.
Yeah, I think it's more here.
And I could see at that moment why these relic hunters do what they do. It's an exciting thing to uncover history, uncover something that has been buried for years. The one thing I didn't anticipate is what he was going to uncover.
It feels like metal to me. That.
Really? Right here?
There.
Right there?
Wait,
okay, watch out, watch out, watch out. Oh, yes.
Holy Jesus, what is that? Oh.
That's nice. There we go, look at that. A shell or a rock?
I don't know, mate. I don't know just yet. Let's just take it a little bit easy. Okay, we want to leave this. This is a grenade. That's a Mills grenade. It's a round item that big.
Yeah.
Slightly curved.
Uh-huh.
Pineapple.
Pineapple in shape. We got a grenade.
I think so. The Japanese are a lot straighter down the side and they have a much squarer bottom, whereas this is slightly curved. And if you look carefully down there, you can almost see the pineapple shape. And then just to confirm what it is, this is actually the top end.
Mm-hmm.
And just there, you can sort of see like a very small circle about the size of my finger.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually where the filler cap goes. So they make the grenade casing, and then they pour the TNT into that, and then they fill it up when they're ready to ship it. So that just confirms that this is actually a British or a Canadian M36 grenade.
You have no clue now by looking at this whether the pin's in or not?
No, we don't. We don't know if that's been thrown and it's a dud, or if it's still got the safety latch and pin attached.
And being here for 70 years may not be in stable condition anyway.
I wouldn't have thought so.
If this thing goes off?
10-meter kill radius, gone.
Well, I guess that's the end of our journey today, because if we go any farther, it just may be our last one.
Let's head for a dignified retreat, shall we?
Definitely, yes. Beat a hasty retreat out of here.
Let's do it.
For safety, Craig reburied the grenade, GPS marked it, and informed the police. The bomb squad eventually came along and blew it up long after we were gone.
Unfortunately, we didn't get our big objective, the cache, but boy, did we come away with one hell of a story.
All said and done, digging up war junk on Mount Bennett, it was a blast. Almost.
After the incredible expedition to Bennett's Hill, we received great news regarding the shoulder flash that Craig found. 2 files were sent to us overnight from our research team. These reports could help solve the mystery.
It was written by a sergeant from the Royal Army Medical Corps who survived the battle. And the interesting part is he narrows down our choices to 3 men who were with him. It's either a Captain Barclay, a Private Evans, or a Private Jones.
Well, Barclay is what the research team talked about.
That's right.
First, right? But
yeah, well, it gets better. They were all taken prisoner at the advanced dressing station. They were then marched up a hill where they were tied to trees, tortured. They made an incredible daring escape. Now, the interesting part for us, they ended up splitting up and going in separate directions. Evans and Jones one way, Barclay the other.
Well, that's good info.
So if we can get Craig to take us to where he found this, and we cross-reference it with their directions, then we'll know.
This is big. This is huge.
So in the report, where it keeps referring to the medical aid post, it is just behind me on that slope just there.
So that's where it would have been in 1941?
That's right. That's where they would have been held captive for a couple of days until they surrendered, and then they came out.
After that, they said something about taken to a place overlooking this aid station.
Is that they were taken over to that hill just over there. So this is it.
So this is the area then that's overlooking the dressing station.
Which is just down there. And this is, I suspect, the area where they were tied to a tree. They were tortured until they made their daring escape. And where it says down here that 2 of them decided to head towards Shaki 1, that's that direction.
Okay.
But Barclay, Captain Barclay, he decides to go to Stanley.
Which is where?
Which is that direction.
Barclay's decision to go to Stanley is an interesting one. It was the location of the hospital where he worked, and eventually the last Allied stronghold before the surrender.
And this is the exact spot I found it.
Right here?
Right here, right here.
This tiny little piece of war junk was right here. Now, how far are we away from where they split up?
We're about 400 meters to the south of where they were held against a tree.
Okay.
But what really makes this interesting, Barclay headed towards Stanley. Stanley is this direction, while his other comrades went the other direction.
Okay, that's not just interesting, lad. That seals it. I mean, this is the only thing that was here. Barclay was the only person who came by here, the only one who could have been wearing a Royal Army Medical Corps shoulder flash.
That's what it looks like.
So there's only one conclusion. This has to be Barclay's.
Right here.
I think the next step is we're going to see if we can find somebody from Captain Barclay's family and maybe return this to him.
Coming up, a 70-year-old mystery is finally solved by the smallest and most seemingly insignificant piece of war junk.
Barclay was the only person who came by here, the only one who could have been wearing a Royal Army Medical Corps shoulder flash.
That's what it looks like, right here.
Of course, this battle only raged for 3 weeks, and the battle around here only for a couple of days, and then that was it. Nothing else touched this area through the entire war. No other battle, no other fight. It can only be Barclay's.
Our challenge now was to find a member of Captain Barclay's family. This seemed daunting at first, but using information from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, we located a Barclay family living in New Zealand. Astonishingly, we managed to find his son, Jim, a 70-year-old cattle farmer from New Zealand. Immediately, we arranged for him to fly to Hong Kong to meet us.
This is incredible. I mean, doing what we've done, I thought was a 1,000,000 to 1 shot. But now bringing a guy all the way from New Zealand to walk the same path that his father did, that's just off the charts.
So, Jim, I mean, it's amazing that our research team found you so quickly.
And quite frankly, a shock.
Shock that we called you in regards to your father.
Yes, absolutely.
At this time, Jim knew nothing of the shoulder flash and the story behind it. But I also didn't know much about his story and what he knew of his father.
I was a baby of about 4 months old. The women and children were asked that were made to evacuate the island of Hong Kong. We were taken to the Philippines.
And at that point, your father never saw you again?
Never saw us again.
And did it affect your mother deeply?
She never really talked about the war, and she didn't talk about him to us children. She married again in 1945.
And have you ever wondered about him?
I have wondered about him. I had a photograph, but my mother never tried to make me feel emotionally attached to a person I didn't know.
Up until now, though, you've had no information about how he died, where he died?
No information at all. Nothing.
Bringing Jim over, we didn't want to reveal anything about our information until he met Craig. Jim? Craig Mitchell?
Very nice to meet you.
Craig is a local.
I see.
I was born and raised here in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And Craig has been searching the island, finding artifacts.
At weekends, myself and a few colleagues, we like to go over some of the battlefields to sort of survey and sort of see what's happening around there. About a year ago, we found a very small item on the floor. I've managed to identify it as being a shoulder flash coming from a Royal Army Medical Corps. Would you like to hold it?
How extraordinary. How do you think that's related to my father?
And it was just over here.
When Craig brought us the story, we put our war junk research team onto it, and they were able to come up with a couple of reports that were done after the war about Japanese atrocities that occurred here.
Right.
Unfortunately, your father's name appears in both of them. They're rather sensitive reading.
Right.
But I think it's really important that you have them in connection with this.
I see. Well, that is a revelation, and I'm very grateful to receive it.
No,
it's a
you're
very
very
sobering reading, but it's at least it brings some finality to end to a situation that none of us really knew about.
This is the exact spot where I found that shoulder flash, and it does tie in with the accounts that we've uncovered where it says that your father was detained up over on this location here. He was heading straight over towards Stanley, which is that direction there.
It feels extraordinary. I came with a quite open mind, but fairly cynical and sort of sceptical about what I would find, and what I've discovered is really shed a new light and new insights onto my father's life. And so this is the last known place where he would have gone past. The location all ties in with the written reports of the time, and I'm more than totally convinced that this belongs to my father.
Jim had one final request for us, to take him to his father's grave for the very first time. But this war junk story had one more twist.
Yeah, there's some things that are rather unexpected in this. And we arrived here at the Saiwan Military Cemetery to bring Jim to see the grave of his father. When we arrived, we were a little shocked to find out that there is no grave.
We thought we had a plot number, and it actually is a column number, which means his name is etched on a wall of soldiers whose bodies were never found. We had to tell him there was no grave, that Captain Barclay was never found, and I don't know how he was going to take it.
We realized that there is no plot, only his name on the wall, meaning his body was never found.
The start and the end of a journey, because you know, I just didn't know that this existed, and I didn't know this existed. I knew that he was buried here, and I thought he was buried here, and now I know that he was never found.